Chapter 606. Jia Shihan said, "Don't worry, little brother. I pierced Xiao Luochen's right chest with the killing skill of sound. I'm afraid he won't be able to recover within a year. He definitely won't come again in a short time. As for Madam of Bones and Red-Eyebrowed Monster, they used the blood shadow technique to escape. It is estimated that they won't be able to recover within half a year." At this point, she said apologetically, "I can only blame myself for having just broken through and not being familiar with the control of the world's origin energy, so I couldn't kill them on the spot." Feng Wu asked, "Sister Shihan, you seem to be very familiar with the Devil Gate. Who is your master?" Jia Shihan smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry, Sister Feng Wu. Master doesn't allow me to say it." She turned around and said to Qin Haodong, "Little brother, I'm leaving." Qin Haodong was slightly stunned. "Isn't this your home? Where are you going?" "Master said that if I can't break this seal, I won't be able to return to the sect for the rest of my life. But once I break it, I must immediately return to see her. She has something important for me to do." Jia Shihan said reluctantly, "I didn't expect to break through the seal so soon, but I can't ignore Master's words. I must go back to see her." She was a very simple girl. She didn't want to disobey her master's order, but she also didn't want to leave Qin Haodong. It was for this reason that she wasn't as happy as the others after the breakthrough. "Oh." Qin Haodong said, "Well, come back to see me when you have time, or you can tell me the address of your sect." "I'll come to see you when I have time. Master doesn't allow me to tell you the sect's address." "I'll come to see you." Jia Shihan said, "Little brother, I'll come back to you after I'm done with Master's matter." Qin Haodong nodded. "When are you going to leave?" Jia Shihan said, "Now, Master asked me to go back immediately after breaking through. I have been delayed for a while." Qin Haodong was speechless for a while. This good girl was too obedient. No matter what her master said, she would carry it out 100%. "Well, take this card with you. There are 5 million yuan in it. Call me if you don't have enough money." Qin Haodong said and stuffed a bank card into Jia Shihan's hand. "Little brother, I still have money." "I can't take your money." Qin Haodong said, "What's yours and mine? Isn't what's mine yours? Take it first. If you don't need it, bring it back to me." "All right then." Jia Shihan was afraid that Qin Haodong would be unhappy if she refused, so she put the bank card in her pocket. "Brother, I'm leaving. I'll come to see you after a while." After saying that, her eyes were already filled with tears, and she turned around and walked towards the door. Qin Haodong said, "Wait a minute, I'll see you off." Jia Shihan said, "There's no need. Your injury has just healed and you need to rest. Moreover, I have a very low tier threshold. If you send me off, I will cry. It's better for me to leave alone." Qin Haodong looked at her holding back her tears and felt a little sad in his heart. He didn't say anything more. Feng Wu suddenly asked, "Is your master called you Lingyun?" Jia Shihan turned around. Although there were still tears in her eyes, she smiled mischievously. "Sister Feng Wu, you guessed it. I didn't say anything." After that, she waved at the two of them and left the room without looking back. Qin Haodong looked at Feng Wu and asked, "Do you know Shihan's master?" "I guessed it." Feng Wu said, "There are 5 hidden sects under the Zihang Sword House. They are the Xuanfa sect, the Divine Design sect, the Killing Sound sect, the Array Origin sect, and the Elixir Medicine sect. Among the 5 sects, the Killing Sound sect uses music to enter martial arts. Their cultivation method can suppress the demonic sound in the soul. Sister Shihan should have come from the Killing Sound sect, whether she used the mind-clearing mantra at the beginning or the Killing Sound method later. It's also because of this that her internal strength and genuine qi are compatible with ours without any conflict. That makes sense." Qin Haodong thought for a moment and said, "You are the young sword master of the Zihang Sword House. Don't you know the people in the Killing Sound sect?" Feng Wu said, "That's the problem. Every 5 years, the Tsihang Sword House will hold a gathering within the sect. At that time, the protectors, sword masters, and the people of the 5 hidden sects will all be present. I don't dare to say anything else. I know all the disciples above the Supreme Power Realm, but I have never seen Sister Shirhan. Qin Haodong said in surprise, why? Since you don't know her, how can you guess who her master is? Feng Wu said, it's a long story. More than a decade ago, the old sect master of the Killing Sound sect suddenly died of illness. Before he died, he did not decide on the next sect master. At that time, the old sect master had 2 most outstanding disciples. One was Yu Lingyun, and the other was Yu Bingyun. They were both amazing figures, and their cultivation was the same. They were both at the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm. Later, under the leadership of the elders of the Sword House, the Killing Sound sect held a vote among the disciples of the sect. Finally, Yu Bingyun was chosen as the sect master. But Yu Lingyun refused to accept it. After that, she left the Killing Sound sect and made an agreement with Yu Bingyun. Whoever could teach a disciple to reach the Saint Realm would be the sect master of the Killing Sound sect. Qin Haodong said, what happened? Did Yu Bingyun agree? Yes. Feng Wu said, the sect masters of the 5 hidden sects are only at the 9th level of the Supreme Power Realm. There has never been a master at the Saint Realm. Yu Bingyun has no reason to refuse. Moreover, in the eyes of others, Yu Lingyun was just angry. This was a completely impossible task. They thought that she would come back after a while. Unexpectedly, after Yu Lingyun left, there has been no news of her for many years. She has never stepped into the Killing Sound sect. Everyone has slowly forgotten this person. Just now, when I saw Sister Shirhan's performance, I suddenly thought of Yu Lingyun, so I gave it a try. I didn't expect it to be her. After so many years, she really succeeded in creating a master at the Saint Realm. Qin Haodong said, do you mean that Yu Lingyun asked Shirhan to go back to find her after breaking the seal in order to get the sect master of the Killing Sound sect? I was just guessing at first, but now it seems that it's true. Yu Lingyun has endured for so many years, and now it's time to take back what belongs to her. Qin Haodong said, after all, Yu Bingyun has been the sect master for so many years. Will Shirhan be in trouble when she goes back? Feng Wu shook her head and said, you underestimate the influence of the saint. With Sister Shirhan's current cultivation, even if she goes to the Tsihang Jing house to serve as an elder, let alone a sect master, Yu Bingyun will definitely keep her promise and let Shirhan be the sect master. Qin Haodong sighed and said, Shirhan is really amazing. She has become the sect master of a big sect at such a young age. Feng Wu said, I'm afraid Sister Shirhan doesn't think so. If she could choose, she would prefer to be with you. Qin Haodong asked, why? Feng Wu said, don't you see that Sister Shirhan has a deep love for you? It was because you were seriously injured this time that she broke the seal in a hurry. Moreover, Sister Shirhan is not the kind of person who is very ambitious. If she could choose, she would definitely be willing to stay by your side. I really didn't think about it. Qin Haodong had a headache. He didn't expect that he would owe another debt of love unintentionally. Feng Wu said considerately, in fact, it's nothing. You are the sacred master. It's normal for more girls to like you. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Qin Haodong said, what are your plans recently? Feng Wu said, originally, I came to Shanghai Medical College to hide my identity and take the opportunity to find the whereabouts of the Devil Gate. Now that I have completed this task, there is no need for me to go to school anymore. I plan to follow you in the future. Qin Haodong said, according to your understanding of the Devil Gate, will they retaliate against us after suffering such a big loss this time? Feng Wu said, if Sister Shirhan hadn't stepped into the Saint Realm, they would definitely come to take revenge. But now it's completely different. There is one more saint on the Tsihang Sword House's side, and they have an overwhelming advantage in terms of strength. For the time being, the Devil Gate will hide until they also have a Saint Realm expert. Qin Haodong nodded and said with a smile, when can you become a winner? Feng Wu blushed and said, it's not easy to break through the Saint Realm. Many people can't touch the threshold of the Saint Realm in their lifetime. Otherwise, there would not be so few of them. Sister Shirhan is talented and lucky, so she was able to break through the threshold of the Saint Realm. However, if I continue to stay by the Holy Lord's side, I should be able to enter the ranks of saints within a year. What she meant was obvious. If she could practice with Qin Haodong every day, her cultivation would definitely improve quickly. She would be able to reach the 9th level of the Supreme Power Realm with just one practice. It wouldn't be too difficult for her to break through the bottleneck of the Saint Realm. Qin Haodong's expression froze. He had just helped Qi Wan reach the 3rd level of the Supreme Power Realm, and now Feng Wu was counting on him to help her break through to the Saint Realm. If this went on, he would really become a virgin. The horse is off. The saddest thing was that he had helped Jia Shirhan break the seal and become a saint. He had also helped Jia Shirhan become a 9th level Supreme Power Master, but he was still a 3rd level Supreme Power Master. There was no sign of him breaking through. At this rate, he would really become a man who lived off a woman. It seemed that if he wanted to improve his cultivation, he would have to hurry up and find high-grade spirit stones. It was already evening when Qin Haodong and Feng Wu walked out of the room. After dinner, Qin Haodong decided to tell Li Meiyu the truth to avoid similar troubles in the future. He came to Li Meiyu's room and said with a smile, I want to talk to you. Is that okay? Let's not talk about it yet. Li Meiyu said, can you go out with me tomorrow? Then we can talk, okay? Qin Haodong thought for a moment, nodded and said, okay, let's talk tomorrow. After that, he left the room. Li Meiyu looked at his back and murmured, I know what you're going to say. If you say it, we'll be separated. The next day, Qin Haodong and Li Meiyu did not go to school. They drove away from the community early in the morning. Tell me, where do you want to go? Qin Haodong said. I want to go to the seaside. Well, let's go to the seaside. The Range Rover roared and went straight to the seaside bathing place in Shanghai. Chapter 607. When Qin Haodong, who was wearing a pair of big swimming trunks, and Li Meiyu, who was wearing a bikini, appeared at the beach in Shanghai, they immediately attracted countless envious gazes. The handsome man and the beautiful woman were the focus of attention wherever they went. Qin Haodong glanced at Li Meiyu beside him. Although this little girl was usually a little jealous, she still had a good figure. She was curvy in all the right places and curvy in all the right places. Her snow-white, moisturized skin blinded many people. Along the way, he could always hear the sound of countless other male creatures swallowing behind him. Qin Haodong said with a smile, let's go swimming, or their eyeballs will fall to the ground. Li Meiyu said, I don't want to swim. I want to take a boat. Qin Haodong looked at her and said, aren't we here to swim dressed like this? If we want to swim, we should swim in the sea. I don't like to be surrounded by so many people. Li Meiyu had her own thoughts. It was very likely that this was the only day she could be with Qin Haodong, so she wanted to be alone and did not want to be surrounded by other people. Well, wait for me. I'll rent a boat. Soon, Qin Haodong rented a motorboat with a small cabin. After paying the money, they got on the boat and drove to the blue sea together. Li Meiyu sat next to Qin Haodong with a pair of big sunglasses on her face. She felt the sun blowing on her face and the strong sea breeze blowing her long hair backward. She felt that every pore on her body was relaxed. This feeling is so beautiful. Li Meiyu stood at the bow of the boat, opening her arms and stretching her curves. Put on a life jacket. Qin Haodong said as he threw a life jacket to Li Meiyu. Hey, why are you such a killjoy? Shouldn't you be appreciating beautiful women at this time? Li Meiyu stared at Qin Haodong and said. Beautiful women should be appreciated, but safety is more important. Don't you see that we are all in the sea now? We are getting farther and farther from the shore. Li Meiyu said, I don't need a life jacket. I was the swimming champion of our school when I was in school. Qin Haodong said, "This is the sea, not a swimming pool. You'd better put on a life jacket." Li Meiyu came to him, bowed down and said, "If I'm in danger, will you save me?" Her bikini was originally a very sexy style, and there was very little fabric on her body. After she bent down, the two beautiful curves became even more exaggerated. Qin Haodong rubbed his nose and quickly looked at the sea. "Of course I will. It's my duty to protect you." Li Meiyu sat down next to him and reached out to hold his arm. Their skin touched each other without any barrier. This feeling was not much different from being naked. "Just to protect me? Nothing else? When we first met, you said that you wanted to pursue me, but you haven't done anything yet." Qin Haodong thought about it and decided to tell her the truth. He set the yacht on autopilot, turned around and said, "I'm sorry. I lied to you about this." Li Meiyu asked in astonishment, "What do you mean?" Qin Haodong said, "I said that I wanted to pursue you because I wanted to get close to you so that I could protect you closely. In fact, my real identity is the boss of Daddy's security company, and I'm also the bodyguard hired by your grandfather. I've been responsible for your safety." She didn't expect Qin Haodong to say that. Li Meiyu's body trembled slightly when he suddenly mentioned this topic. She said, "That is to say, you've never liked me, right?" "I'm sorry, Miss Li," Qin Haodong said apologetically, "you're my employer, and I'm your bodyguard. I have more than one girlfriend." Li Meiyu said with a pale face, "Are all the women at home your girlfriends?" Qin Haodong said, "Almost, except for Shirhan." "Liars, you liars." Li Meiyu roared angrily, "Why did you gang up to deceive me?" Qin Haodong said, "Miss Li, don't get excited. We did this to better protect you." "I don't want you to protect me. I just want you to be my boyfriend. Do you know? You're the first man I've fallen in love with in so many years." Li Meiyu suddenly grabbed Qin Haodong's arm and said excitedly, "Can you break up with those women and be my boyfriend? I can give you money. I can give you a lot of money. You know my identity. I'm the only heir of the Li family. As long as you are my boyfriend, all these properties will be ours in the future." "Miss Li, calm down." Qin Haodong said, "It's not a matter of money. I can't break up with them. Our relationship can't be bought with money." "Then tell me, how can you be my boyfriend? No matter what conditions you put forward, I'll promise you." Speaking of this, Li Meiyu choked with sobs and cried, "I just like you. I want you to be my boyfriend. What's wrong with that? I'm not worse than them at all. I can do whatever they want to do for you. When you were injured that day, I was really heartbroken. At that time, I thought that if I could, would be willing to endure this pain for you, and even die for you." Qin Haodong sighed secretly. This girl was sincere to him, but it was a pity that the way she expressed her feelings was a little extreme. Looking at Li Meiyu, who was crying like a pear blossom in the rain, he was about to comfort her. Suddenly, his scalp went numb and a great sense of crisis rose in his heart. He turned his head and saw a flash of light on the distant sea. Danger! He suddenly rushed forward and directly threw Li Meiyu on the deck, and they rolled continuously. Li Meiyu's heart tightened. Was his condition to have sex with her here? Should she agree or not? "Come on, I like him anyway." Li Meiyu stretched out her hands and hugged Qin Haodong, and they rolled on the deck together. Just as her mind was full of messy thoughts, she suddenly felt a chill around her and fell into the sea with a splash. Before she could figure out what was going on, there was a loud bang, which almost broke her eardrums. A stream of light flew over and directly hit the cabin of the speedboat, causing the entire hull to burst into a huge ball of fire. What's going on? Li Meiyu knew that Qin Haodong had saved her, but before she could figure out what had happened, she felt that Qin Haodong was holding her tightly and swimming away from the water. Although she was very good at swimming and her lung capacity was much larger than that of ordinary people, she still couldn't stand such a long time of diving. She kept patting Qin Haodong's back, indicating that she couldn't take it anymore and wanted to go up to breathe. Qin Haodong had no choice but to slowly float to the surface with her. He poked his head out and breathed in the fresh air. From a distance, he saw that the yacht was burning. If Qin Haodong hadn't reacted quickly, they would have been blown to pieces. After taking a breath, she asked with a pale face, "What's going on?" "Someone wants to kill us, and they made a big noise. They even used a rocket." Qin Haodong was not sure who the other party was aiming at. Was it him or Li Meiyu? After all, he had too many enemies recently. The Jing family, the Sun family, or the secular forces of the devil cult might kill him. At this moment, Qin Haodong saw a speedboat coming from afar. Although Li Meiyu usually hated bodyguards following her, she now knew the value of safety. She said nervously, "What should we do?" "Hide here and don't wander around. Wait for me to come back." Qin Haodong took out a long straw from the storage ring and stuffed it into Li Meiyu's mouth. "Dive into the water and remember not to show your head. Come out when I find you." "I know. You must be careful." Li Meiyu realized that it was not the time to lose her temper after the narrow escape. She dived into the water with the straw in her mouth. She was good at swimming, and with the straw to ensure her breathing, it was not a problem to hide underwater for a few hours. After Qin Haodong settled Li Meiyu down, a cold light flashed in his heart, and then he dived into the water. The other party could openly use a rocket on them at sea, which showed that they were very powerful. They were more than 10 kilometers away from the coastline. Although the noise just now was very loud, it did not attract anyone's attention. He slowly approached the wreckage of the speedboat. When he emerged from the water, another speedboat was not far away from the direction of the rocket. With Qin Haodong's eyesight, he could see the situation on the boat clearly. There were 5 people standing on the boat, all fully armed and wearing black diving suits, with daggers at their waists and submachine guns in their hands. A big black man standing at the bow was even more exaggerated. He was carrying a huge rocket launcher on his shoulder. It seemed that he had just fired the rocket. Behind him, a white man with blonde hair said, "Eagle, your skills are not good enough. Did you hit her or not?" The big black man said, "Don't worry. No prey can escape from me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be called Eagle." Another short Asian man said, "The boat has already caught fire. It seems that there is no problem. Wasn't this mission a little too simple? It's a waste of $10 million to hire our predator mercenary group to kill a little girl." The blonde man said, "Why do you care so much? Isn't it a good thing to have money?" "That's right. If we get the $10 million commission, we can go to the Caribbean coast to enjoy the beauties." The one who spoke was another bald man with bulging muscles. He said excitedly, "Let's go and have a look. As long as we find the woman's body, we can go back and get the money." The big black man said, "The rocket is so powerful that it's impossible to find the body. I'm afraid it has been blown into pieces." Chapter 608. A tall and thin black man with small braids sitting at the stern said, "I want to see them alive or dead. This is the other party's order. At least we have to pick up a piece of flesh for DNA testing." The blonde man laughed and said, "It's a pity that the young man on the boat is a good-looking man. It's a waste that he became a scapegoat." The bald man said, "Damn it, I really don't understand you gays. There are so many beautiful women that you can have sex with, but you just like men." As they spoke, the speedboat was getting closer and closer to the burning wreckage of the speedboat. Through their conversation, Qin Haodong could be sure that these people's target was Li Meiyu, not him. He had been a bodyguard for such a long time and had always been calm. Now that a powerful mercenary group had suddenly come, it seemed that the situation had changed. The speedboat circled around the wreckage. Several people tried their best to search the boat, but they did not find any wreckage, not even a trace of flesh and blood. The blonde man said, "There is no one on the boat. It's very likely that they were blown into the water, or jumped into the water in advance." Black Hawk said, "How is that possible? We attacked suddenly. Can they predict the future?" The bald man said, "Don't worry so much. Search immediately. These two people are probably in the nearby sea. It seemed that he was the boss of this mercenary group. After that, the bald man and the blonde man stood guard on the boat with submachine guns, while the other three people jumped into the water and began to search. It was not convenient to use guns in the water, so the three people threw their guns on the boat and took out the daggers at their waists. Obviously, they had all been professionally trained. They dived into the water like three big black fish, leaving the direction where the speedboat came from and searching in the other three directions. The blonde man and the bald man stood at the bow and stern of the boat with AKs in their hands, staring at the sea vigilantly. The blonde man cried, "Boss, if that gigolo is not dead, give him to me. I haven't seen such a good guy for a long time." His face was full of excitement, and he did not notice that a long golden sword had appeared behind his head. Chin Haodong was lurking nearby. Seeing that this gay man dared to have bad intentions towards him, he sentenced him to death first. After a flash of golden light, the Xianyuan sword directly penetrated the back of the blonde man's head. "You have to be careful. Don't think about these messy things. I feel that something is not right today." As the bald man was speaking, he suddenly heard a splash behind him. He quickly looked back and saw that the blonde man had fallen into the water, followed by a splash of blood floating up. "Not good, there's a sneak attack." The bald man suddenly became nervous. He patrolled the area with his AK, but the sea was calm. Other than a few seabirds flying past, there was no sign of anyone. What's going on? How did this gay guy die? Even though the bald man had been through hundreds of battles, he was still full of doubts. To be able to silently kill his companion, what kind of method did he rely on? Was he using a silenced pistol or a flying knife? No matter what, he had to see the other party's shadow. However, he didn't see anything. The silent sea was filled with endless strangeness. "No, it's dangerous." The bald man put his finger in his mouth and whistled loudly, reminding the other three companions to come back quickly. Hearing the whistle, the others immediately realized that something serious had happened and quickly returned. However, only Black Hawk and the Asian man came back. The black man with a ponytail did not come back. The two men climbed onto the boat. Black Hawk said to the bald man, "Boss, what happened?" The bald man pointed to the floating body of the blonde man and said, "The gay man is dead." The Asian man asked in surprise, "How did he die?" After saying that, he grabbed an AK and stared at the sea vigilantly. Mercenaries like them who lived on the edge of a knife had to be on high alert at all times. The bald man said with a heavy expression, "That's the strange thing. I didn't see the enemy at all." The gay man suddenly fell into the water. Black Hawk said, "Barkley hasn't come back yet. Could something have happened to him?" Then he also put his finger in his mouth and whistled loudly. However, the sea was still calm and there was no sign of anyone. "That's right. Barkley must be dead. We must be careful." After the bald man said that, the three of them stood back to back in a triangle, holding the AK in their hands and staring at the sea around them. However, the sea was still calm after a long time. There was no movement. The wreckage of the speedboat was almost burned and slowly sank into the water. The bald man said, "The other party has a master. Black Hawk, you are responsible for collecting information. Have you figured out the young man's information?" Black Hawk said, "No, we received an urgent task. At that time, I didn't think it was necessary to investigate a gigolo boy. We could just kill him." "Boss, don't tell me you think that he's a hidden expert." The bald man said, "There are only two people on that boat. One is our target, the heir of the Li family in Hong Kong. We know their information very well. There is nothing special about them except that they are from good families. Now two of us have died silently. Who else could it be but that young man?" The Asian man said, "Boss, do you think it's haunted?" Black Hawk said, "Don't talk nonsense. We have killed countless people over the years. If there were ghosts, we would have seen them long ago. How could we wait until today?" The Asian man said, but it's obvious that someone wants to kill us, but we can't even see a shadow now. Boss said it's that young man, but I don't think it's possible. Where do you think he can hide? Even a fish has to come up to breathe, right? While he was talking, the water in front of him suddenly splashed and a figure slowly floated up. The Asian man had been concentrating on his vigilance. When he saw the movement on the sea, he immediately pulled the trigger. The AK in his hand spat out a tongue of fire and the bullets poured out at the black shadow. Ta! 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 After the intensive gunshots, blood splashed and a black shadow floated up to the surface of the water. The three of them looked at it together. The bald man exclaimed, "No, it's Barkley." It turned out that the person who had just been shot was the black man with a ponytail. He was their partner, Barkley. At this moment, a golden light flashed through the back of the bald man's head again, like lightning, and blood splashed on the back of his head. The speed of the Xian Yuan sword was so fast that the bald man didn't even have time to scream. He directly fell to the deck with a thud and died. The Asian man and the black man both had rich experience in emergencies. They didn't rush to see the bald man. Instead, they came to their senses and the AK in their hands spat out tongues of fire again. One of them shot into the air, and the other shot into the sea. After they ran out of bullets, they immediately reloaded, but the sea was still calm. Not only did they not find the enemy, but there was not even a ripple. The two of them squatted down slowly with vigilance, and the guns in their hands were still pointing around vigilantly. The Asian man stretched out his foot and kicked the bald man, but there was no reaction. He was indeed dead. He turned the bald man's body over and found that there was a bloody hole as thick as an egg behind the bald man's head, which was bleeding. What caused this wound? It's so weird. They were all experienced mercenaries, but they couldn't tell how the bald man died. The wound was neither a gunshot nor a knife wound, and the attack just came silently, so they couldn't tell at all. "Let's go, we can't stay here anymore," the Asian man said and started the speedboat, but at this time, a golden light flashed in front of his eyes, and then he felt cold between his eyebrows, and then he lost consciousness. Black Hawk still didn't see anyone, and his companions died again. If the other party was a person, he could accept it if it was a wolf or a tiger, but he couldn't see a shadow. The unknown was the most terrible thing. 4 of his companions died silently. At this time, his heart also collapsed. He picked up the AK in his hand and shot wildly in the air in front of him. Then he picked up the rocket launcher on the ship and fired 2 rockets. But it didn't work. There was still a gentle breeze around, and the sun was bright, but in his eyes, it was extremely gloomy. "Devil, who are you? Come out, I'm not afraid of you." Black Hawk waved the rocket launcher in his hand and howled at the void. At this moment, a golden light passed by and cut toward him. Before he could see what it was, the Xian Yuan sword cut him in half together with the rocket launcher, and he fell into the sea behind him. The poor Predator Mercenary Corps, who was famous in the mercenary world, was buried in the sea without even seeing who the opponent was. After Black Hawk's death, Qin Haodong floated up from the sea and jumped onto the speedboat. He glanced at the bald man's body and kicked it into the sea. Naturally, he would not have any mercy for this kind of person. If he hadn't reacted fast enough, he would have been blown to pieces now. Since he wanted to kill others in exchange for the commission, he should be prepared to be killed. After washing the blood on the deck, Qin Haodong started the speedboat and drove in the direction of Li Meiyu's hiding place. "Well, come on up, the problem is solved," Qin Haodong shouted to the water. Li Meiyu was soaking in the sea with a straw in her mouth. Although breathing was not a problem, it was not very comfortable to keep soaking like this. Finally, when Qin Haodong arrived, he suddenly floated up from the water. He grabbed Qin Haodong's hand and climbed onto the speedboat. He sat on the deck to rest for a while and said, "Whose boat is this?" "It's the boat of those killers." "Where are the killers?" "The killers have been fed to the fish," Qin Haodong said as he started the speedboat and drove to the shore. Li Meiyu asked, where did the killers come from? Who wants to kill us? Chapter 609. Qin Haodong said, it's for you. Someone paid $10 million to buy your life. Li Meiyu said in surprise, they want to kill me? Why? Qin Haodong said, why else would they want to kill you? It must be for money. But you should know better than me who did it. Li Meiyu was silent. No one knew what she was thinking. Qin Haodong drove the yacht to the shore, but he did not return to the beach. The boat was full of blood, and its origin was unknown. It was very likely that the mercenaries had robbed it. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, he drove to a beach not far from the beach. Compared with the noisy beach, it was much quieter here. When they arrived, there was only a small boat floating on the sea. There was no one on the boat. It was just floating in the wind on the sea. An old man wearing a bamboo hat was sitting on the bow, holding a fishing rod and concentrating on fishing. When Qin Haodong's yacht passed by the small boat, the old man's face showed a hint of joy. The fishing rod in his hand also moved. It seemed that there was a fish on the hook. When the two boats passed by, the old man shook his wrist and the fishing rod vibrated. Then the white fishing line quickly rose from the water. However, there was no fish on the fishing rod. An oversized fishing hook, shining with silver light, shot toward Li Meiyu's neck like a shining scimitar. If this special fishing hook pierced the neck, the trachea would probably be cut off immediately. Li Meiyu did not expect that the kind-looking fisherman turned out to be a killer. She did not have time to react and was stunned. The assassination seemed to be extremely simple, but it was a killing move that had been prepared for a long time. It killed people silently. In the blink of an eye, the fishing hook was already in front of Li Meiyu's throat after the unexpected assassination. The corners of the old man's mouth curled up into a cold smile, but at this moment, a golden light flashed, and a sharp sword chi instantly slashed the fish hook into powder. The old man was shocked. He did not expect that Qin Haodong, who looked ordinary, turned out to be a master. But he did not give up. He took off the bamboo hat on his head and waved it in Li Meiyu's direction. The bamboo hat was specially made. It was covered with a layer of straw. In fact, the inside was made of fine steel. The outer ring was inlaid with a dozen short blades made of fine steel. When it rotated, it was like a sharp boomerang. The bamboo hat whistled through the air, carrying with it a piercing sound. Its aura was extremely astonishing. However, Qin Haodong did not care about this kind of hidden weapon at all. He raised his hand and patted it as if he was swatting a fly. The wind blew the bamboo hat away. Without the bamboo hat, the old man's weather-beaten face was revealed. He stared at Qin Haodong and asked, "How did you know?" Qin Haodong said, "Fishermen are all fishermen. You will starve to death if you fish here like a fool. There's no one else who can be a killer like you. You're a complete idiot. How dare you scold me, boy? You are not in the original assassination mission. Then you will accompany this woman." The old man reached out and took out an AK from the bamboo basket next to him. He raised his hand and pointed at Qin Haodong. He shouted with a ferocious look, "Go to hell." Then he pulled the trigger hard, but he did not hear the sound of a gunshot. Then he felt a sharp pain in his wrist and both of his hands fell to the deck of the boat. "Ah!" The old man let out a miserable howl and fell to the deck. Qin Haodong gently jumped onto the small fishing boat and pointed the Xian Yuan sword at the old man's chest. "Tell me, who sent you?" He did not take the Predator Mercenary Corps seriously just now. Now that he had been assassinated twice in a row, things were not so simple. He had to figure out the situation. I don't know." The old man endured the pain with a painful expression on his face. At this moment, Qin Haodong turned his wrist and drew a sharp sword chi with the Xian Yuan sword, directly splitting the cabin in front of him. With a scream, another killer hiding in the cabin was split in half along with the AK in his hand. Qin Haodong turned around and used mind manipulating on the old man. Tell me, who sent you? The old man said, we are just killers. We don't know who our employer is. We only know that the other party offered us $10 million to kill this woman named Li Meiyu. Since he did not know who the employer was, it was useless to keep him alive. Qin Haodong kicked the old man into the sea, turned around and jumped back onto the yacht, heading for the shore. Qin Haodong chose a flat beach and jumped ashore with Li Meiyu. Haodong, thank you for saving me. Li Meiyu said gratefully. These two assassinations were very dangerous. If it weren't for Qin Haodong, she would have died twice. Only then did she realize how important the bodyguard her grandfather had found was. You're welcome. It's my duty to protect you. Qin Haodong glanced at her and said, are you cold? A little. They didn't know when the weather had changed. Thick clouds covered the sun and the sea breeze was blowing. In addition, Li Meiyu had been soaking in the sea for so long and was only wearing a bikini. Her lips were a little blue from the cold. Qin Haodong only wore a pair of swimming trunks, so he couldn't help Li Meiyu. He jumped onto a rock next to him and looked into the distance. After coming down, he said, there is a fishing village ahead. Let's go and have a look. I'll find you some clothes and something to eat. After saying that, Qin Haodong walked forward with Li Meiyu. Out of the beach, there was a small fishing village in front of them. In front of the fishing village was a road, and next to the road was a small restaurant with a sign of Seafood Wonton Restaurant. Qin Haodong said, let's go eat a bowl of wonton first, and then go back to the bathing place to get something. Okay. Li Meiyu nodded and they walked to the chaos house together. In front of the wonton restaurant, a middle-aged woman in her 40s was collecting clothes. Qin Haodong stepped forward and said, big sister, can you sell us one of your clothes? The middle-aged woman looked back at them. When she saw Li Meiyu, she said, girl, you must be cold. Don't worry about money. Take a coat to warm yourself first. Then she handed a coat to Li Meiyu. Li Meiyu took the coat and put it on. Her face suddenly relaxed a lot. Thank you, big sister. Li Meiyu said gratefully. It's a small matter. Don't thank me. Come in. I'll cook a bowl of wonton for you. Have a taste of my cooking. The middle-aged woman warmly invited them into the wonton restaurant and then went to the kitchen. At this time, a boy about 10 years old ran out. He was wearing a pair of shorts and his skin was tan, probably because he often played at the beach. After seeing Li Meiyu, he ran over and said, big sister, you're so beautiful. You're even more beautiful than my mother. At this time, Li Meiyu calmed down a lot and said, thank you for your compliment, little brother. The little boy said, big sister, when I grow up and make a lot of money, I'll marry you, okay? Qin Haodong said, are all children so precocious nowadays? Li Meiyu glared at him and said charmingly, I have good taste. You have eyes but can't see. The two of them chatted with the little boy for a while. The middle-aged woman worked quickly. A few minutes later, 2 bowls of wonton were served. Have a taste. What do you think of my cooking? The middle-aged woman said enthusiastically. Qin Haodong took a bowl of wonton and put it in front of him. He sniffed and said, big sister, your wonton smells so good. The middle-aged woman wiped her hands on her apron and said, this is a secret recipe passed down from generation to generation. The seasoning used is special, so it naturally smells good. Qin Haodong nodded and said, big sister, do the police know that you use drunk immortal as seasoning? After hearing his words, the middle-aged woman's expression suddenly changed. Then she shook her wrist and the bowl of wonton was thrown at Qin Haodong's face. Then a dagger appeared in her hand like magic and she stabbed at Li Meiyu. The innocence on the face of the little boy who had been guarding her disappeared. He also took out a dagger and stabbed at Li Meiyu's ribs with a ferocious face. This was not a little boy at all, but a dwarf killer who could not grow up. Qin Haodong raised his foot and kicked the middle-aged woman's lower abdomen. She flew out and hit the opposite wall. Then he reached out and grabbed the dwarf killer's wrist. He said with a smile, "In fact, you have already exposed yourself, do you know?" The dwarf killer struggled desperately, but still couldn't break free. He said with a frightened face, "How did you know?" Qin Haodong said, "Blame yourself for being too lascivious. You always look at places you shouldn't look at. This is not a reaction that a little boy should have. It's fate that we met. Now I'll help you make up for this flaw," Qin Haodong said as he kicked the dwarf killer's legs. Then, he directly kicked the dwarf killer's balls. The dwarf killer held his lower abdomen with both hands and kept rolling on the ground, screaming like a pig being slaughtered. At this time, the middle-aged woman rushed over with a long knife and slashed at Li Meiyu fiercely. Qin Haodong shook his head. She really cared about money more than her life. He really didn't know how such a brainless killer had survived until now. He raised his wrist and directly pierced the middle-aged woman's throat with the Xian Yuan sword. Then, he walked in front of the dwarf killer and said, "Forget it, you'd better not be a eunuch. Go to hell." In the dwarf killer's frightened eyes, Qin Haodong pierced his heart with the sword. Li Meiyu came to her senses and ran forward to hold Qin Haodong's arm tightly. "Aren't they running a shop? Why are they also killers?" Qin Haodong said, "If I'm not mistaken, the owner of this shop has just been killed by them." Then, he went to the kitchen. Sure enough, a middle-aged couple was lying in a pool of blood. He called Nalan Wuxia and then said to Li Meiyu, "Let's go back quickly. We have encountered so many killers in a row. I'm afraid that something has happened to your grandfather." Chapter 610. Hearing Qin Haodong's words, Li Meiyu also became nervous. The two of them hurried back to the beach. After returning to the car, Li Meiyu turned on her mobile phone. There were more than a dozen missed calls, all from Uncle Cheng, the old housekeeper of the Li family. As soon as she picked up her mobile phone, the phone rang again. She pressed the answer button and Uncle Cheng said in a hurry, "Miss, come back quickly. Master is critically ill." Li Meiyu was shocked and quickly said, "Hasn't Grandpa always been in good health? Why did he suddenly fall ill?" "Master has been ill for a week. He was fine in the first few days, but he suddenly got worse today. The doctor has issued a notice of critical illness. Miss, come back quickly. If you are late, you may not be able to see him for the last time." Li Meiyu said, "Uncle Cheng, you must take good care of Grandpa. I'll go back right away." After hanging up the phone, she turned to Qin Haodong and said, "My grandpa is sick and very serious. You are the medical sage of Huaxia. Go to Hong Kong with me. You must save my grandpa." Qin Haodong said, "Okay, I'll take you back to Hong Kong and see the old man on the way." Li Meiyu said eagerly, "Then let's go now and go to the airport." Qin Haodong said, "Don't worry. I've just checked it. The nearest flight to Hong Kong is 2 hours away. Let's go back and pack up our things and bring all our documents. I have to arrange things at home, and then we'll go to the airport." "Okay, I'll listen to you." After all, Li Meiyu was a girl who had just turned 20 years old. She was a little confused when she encountered such a big thing. Qin Haodong drove home and called Lin Momo and the others over. He explained the situation. Since Li Meiyu was no longer at the Shanghai Medical College, there was no need for Nalan Wuxuang and Qi Wan to go to school. Nalan Wuxuang said, "Since it's all right, I'll go with you." Qin Haodong nodded and said, "Okay." Qi Wan said with regret, "I wanted to go too, but I just received a call from my mother. She asked me to go back to the capital. I've been out for a few months. It's time to go home." Feng Wu said, "I'll go back to my sect first. I'll go to Hong Kong to find you after I'm done with my business." Lin Momo had a lot of things to deal with in Shanghai, and she also had to take care of the little fellow. Naturally, she could not go to Hong Kong. In the end, Qin Haodong took Nalan Wuxuang and Li Meiyu on the plane to Hong Kong. After getting on the plane, Qin Haodong said to Li Meiyu, "Have you figured out who sent the killer?" Li Meiyu shook her head and remained silent. Qin Haodong said, in fact, it's easy to guess. As soon as your grandfather was seriously ill, 3 batches of killers were sent here in succession. Obviously, they were trying to stop you from going back to inherit the inheritance. Try to think about it. If you were to die, who would get the Li family's inheritance? Whoever benefits the most would be the most suspicious. Li Meiyu said with a heavy expression, but they are my closest people. How could they kill me like this? Qin Haodong said, in some people's eyes, there is only money and interests. There is no family affection. The bigger the family, the more such things happen. Li Meiyu said, my parents died in a car accident a few years ago. I'm the only heir of the Li family, but my grandfather has a younger brother and sister, who are my second master and great-aunt. If I die, the Li family's property will belong to them, but I really don't want them to have anything to do with this matter. You are still too kind, Qin Haodong said, there are some things that are useless to escape. You have to face them. Li Meiyu said, because I was still young, most of the family's property was in the hands of my second master and great-aunt after my father died. They would take a large amount of dividends every year. Isn't that enough? Qin Haodong said, there is no limit to greed. In some people's eyes, the more money, the better. Li Meiyu sighed and said, has Grandpa noticed something? That's why he asked you to be my bodyguard. Maybe. Qin Haodong nodded. Old Master Li was able to build such a big family business from scratch, so he was naturally not an ordinary person. He asked again, why did your grandfather ask you to study in the capital and study in the Chinese medicine department of a medical university? Grandpa believes in metaphysics very much. There is a very famous Master Jia in Hong Kong and he has a good relationship with Grandpa. He told my fortune that there would be a bloody disaster when I was 20 years old. Only by studying Chinese medicine at the Shanghai Medical University in Huaxia could I avoid this disaster, so Grandpa sent me here. Li Meiyu turned her head, looked at Qin Haodong and said, now it seems that Master Jia's divination is very accurate. If you weren't by my side today, I might have been killed by these 3 groups of killers. Qin Haodong nodded and said, maybe. The plane took off and flew in the direction of Hong Kong. It was a luxurious villa area in Hong Kong, where all the top rich people lived. Their net worth was less than 10 billion yuan, so they could not live here. In a luxurious room, an old man in his 60s was sitting in an armchair and drinking tea. A young man in his 30s rushed in and said in a panic, Father, something terrible has happened. The old man was the second master that Li Meiyu had mentioned. He was Li Jianye, the second master of the Li group, and the young man was his son, Li Xiaoting. Li Jianye glared at his son and said reproachfully, you're so old. Why are you so flustered when something happens? What's the big deal? Li Xiaoting took a deep breath, calmed down and said, Father, Meiyu has already taken the plane from Shanghai to Hong Kong. She will be back soon. Li Jianye's expression changed. He pointed at Li Xiaoting and said angrily, didn't I ask you to find someone to kill her? You can't even do such a small thing. What can you do? Li Xiaoting said, Father, don't be angry. I have arranged 3 groups of killers in a row, but I can't get in touch with them. Li Meiyu got on the plane, which means that they must have failed. Useless. Li Jianye said angrily, what kind of killers did you find? Why can't they even kill a woman? What are they doing? Li Xiaoting said, Father, the killers I found are all famous killers on the killer list. They are very powerful. I don't know why they all lost contact. I guess Li Meiyu must have a master protecting her. Li Jianye sat back down again. After a moment of silence, he said, it seems that this old man doesn't completely trust us. He secretly made this arrangement. Li Xiaoting said, what should we do now? What should we do? Li Jianye sneered and said, she is a woman. What qualifications does she have to inherit such a big business of our Li family? If the Li family's business is given to her, it will all belong to someone else in the future. Li Xiaoting said, Father, have you already made arrangements? Li Jianya said, of course. How can I not have a few tricks up my sleeves for such a big thing? Since we can't kill her, let's follow the second plan. Speaking of this, he picked up the teacup and took a sip. In addition, my brother and I have a good sister. She will definitely not let go of the Li family. Li Shouting said, Father, do you mean that my aunt will also do something? Li Jianya said, if she doesn't do anything, she won't be your aunt. As soon as the three of them walked out of the airport, a young man with oily hair and a powdered face greeted them. The man was wearing a snow-white suit and a pair of snow-white leather shoes. He was followed by 4 bodyguards in white suits. He looked very flashy. Li Meiyu whispered in Qin's ear, this is my aunt's son, my cousin, Wu Zixiong. Wu Zixiong tidied up his shiny hair and came to Li Meiyu. He said with a smile on his face, cousin, you're finally back. I've missed you so much these days. A look of disgust flashed across Li Meiyu's face. She took 2 steps back and said, cousin, why are you here? Cousin, don't say that. I'm your cousin. How could I not come to pick you up when you're back? Having just experienced 3 assassinations, Li Meiyu was very vigilant. She said, cousin, how did you know that I would come back on this flight? Wu Zixiong's expression froze, and then he said with a smile, cousin, Uncle Cheng said that he called you. I guessed that you would definitely come back, so I came to wait for you. After that, he turned his head and saw Nalan Wushuang next to him. There was a flash of amazement and greed in her eyes. As for Qin Haodong, she automatically ignored him. Cousin, who is this beautiful woman? Can you introduce her to me? Before Li Meiyu could speak, Qin Haodong took the initiative to say, we are Miss Li's bodyguards. Wu Zixiong glanced at him with a flash of contempt in his eyes. All the bodyguards behind him were tall and strong and murderous. He didn't understand why his cousin found these 2 people to be her bodyguards. They were beautiful, but what was the use of that? Did bodyguards rely on their faces to make a living? Li Meiyu asked, how is my grandfather's illness? It's nothing. It's just an old problem. Wu Zixiong said, cousin, you must be tired after a long flight. Come home with me and have a rest first. Li Meiyu frowned. Uncle Cheng said that her grandfather's condition was very bad and his life was in danger at any time. The doctor had given a notice of critical illness, but Wu Zixiong told her that her grandfather was fine. In contrast, she trusted Uncle Cheng, who had been in the Li family for many years. There was only one purpose for Wu Zixiong to say this. He didn't want her to see old Master Li so soon. She said, cousin, I'm not tired. I want to go back to see Grandpa first. Seeing that Li Meiyu didn't listen to his arrangement, Wu Zixiong frowned and said, in that case, cousin, come with me. This is our family's business. Outsiders don't follow us. He turned back and said to Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang, you can have fun in Hong Kong these days. All the expenses are on my account. Li Meiyu's face darkened and said, cousin, what are you going to do? They are my friends, not outsiders. Chapter 6:11. Qin Haodong smiled slightly. The fox's tail was finally revealed. The guy's purpose was not to pick them up, but to control Li Meiyu's personal freedom. He said, we are Miss Li's personal bodyguards. We have to protect her safety. Thank you for your concern about the trip, but we have to wait until we cancel the employment contract. The smile on Wu Zixiong's face instantly disappeared. He said in a cold voice, now I'm here, so you don't have to worry about my cousin's safety. Besides, how can you protect her with only 2 good-looking but useless people? Li Meiyu said angrily, Wu Zixiong, how can you talk to my friend like that? I'm telling you, you don't have to worry about me. She turned back and said to Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang, let's go. After that, the 3 of them walked out of the airport together. Wu Zixiong was slightly stunned. Li Meiyu's reaction was a little beyond his expectation. When he came to his senses, he waved to the 4 bodyguards behind him and said, take Miss Li to the car and drive away the useless people. The 4 bodyguards were tall and strong. It was obvious that they had received special training. After receiving their master's order, they immediately rushed to Qin Haodong and the others. They were well trained and cooperated well. 2 reached out to grab Li Meiyu's arm, and the other 2 stood in front of Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang. Before the 2 bodyguards in front of Qin Haodong could stand still, they felt a strong force hit them, and then they flew up like flying clouds. Wu Zixiong was standing there with a sneer on his face. Suddenly, he was hit by the 2 bodyguards and fell to the ground. His bodyguards were all specially selected. They were tall and strong, and weighed more than 100 kilograms. He almost fainted from the impact. The other 2 bodyguards who were going to grab Li Meiyu suddenly felt a sharp pain in their wrists before their fingers touched Li Meiyu's arm. Then both of their hands were dislocated. Qin Haodong took care of the 4 bodyguards in an instant. He came to Wu Zixiong and said jokingly, "Young Master Wu, your bodyguards are not so good. They are all good-looking but useless. Did you find them to save money?" After that, he grabbed the car key from Wu Zixiong's hand and left with Nalan Wushuang and Li Meiyu. "Useless trash, hurry up and get down." Wu Zixiong cursed angrily. The 2 bodyguards beside him quickly got up and helped him to stand up. Ignoring the dirt on his body, Wu Zixiong quickly took out the phone in his pocket and dialed his mother Li Yueying's number. "Mom, my cousin went back." On the other side of the phone, Li Yueying said discontentedly, "Didn't I tell you to stop her?" Wu Zixiong said, "I can't stop her. She has a pretty boy by her side. He's very powerful. My men were all injured." "Useless thing, I got it." Li Yueying hung up the phone. The expression on her face kept changing. Finally, as if she had made a decision, she turned around and walked toward Li Jianya's room. Li Jianya was still sitting in the room drinking tea. When he saw Li Yueying come in, he smiled and said, "Yueying, you're here." Li Yueying sat down opposite him and said, "That girl is back." Li Jianya asked, "What do you want to do?" Li Yueying said, "I originally wanted to control that girl, but I didn't succeed. In that case, why don't we send the old man away first?" Li Jianya said, "It's not a problem to send the old man away. The key is how to divide the family property. How else can we divide it? Let's cooperate together. Of course, we each get half." Li Yueying said strongly. "I'm afraid that's not appropriate. You're now a married woman, and I'm a member of the Li family. It's reasonable for me to get more." Li Yueying sneered and said strongly, "Second brother, if those people you sent from Huaxia killed that girl, it doesn't matter if you get more. But you didn't, and that girl came back intact. According to reason, she is the heir, and it has nothing to do with us. If we don't cooperate well now, when that girl gets the inheritance, we won't get a penny." Li Jianya's expression changed slightly and he said, "Well, as you said, we'll each get half of the old man's shares." Li Yueying said, "Second brother is sensible. Hurry up and get ready. That girl will be back soon." Qin Haodong and Li Meiyu returned to the Li family's villa. As soon as they entered the door, an old man in a butler's costume came up to them. When he saw Li Meiyu, he said sadly, "Miss, you're still a little late. Did the old master just leave?" Hearing the news, Li Meiyu's face turned pale and she suddenly felt dizzy. Fortunately, Nalan Wushuang supported her. "Uncle Cheng, what did you say? Grandpa left?" Uncle Cheng said with a sad face, "Yes, just half an hour ago, the old master left." Li Meiyu immediately burst into tears when she heard the news of her grandfather's death. Since her parents died, she and her grandfather had been relying on each other. They had always had a good relationship. Now that even the closest person had left, how could she not be sad? Qin Haodong said, "Meiyu, the dead can't come back to life. I'm sorry for your loss. There are still a lot of things for you to do now. You must cheer up." "I know." At this moment, Li Meiyu seemed to have matured a lot. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and said to Uncle Cheng, "Where is Grandpa?" Take me to see him for the last time. He's in the morning hall. Miss, please follow me. After saying that, Uncle Cheng took Li Meiyu to a 2-story building nearby. It seemed that the Li family had been prepared. Although old Master Li had just passed away, the morning hall had already been built. As soon as they entered the door, they ran into Li Jianya and Li Yueying, who were guarding the door. Li Jianya's son, Li Donghai, was standing behind Li Yueying, and Wu Zixiong, whose face was covered with dust, stood behind Li Yueying. It seemed that they had just come back. As soon as Li Meiyu entered the door, Li Yueying came up to her and pretended to be sad. Girl, you're still a little late. Your grandpa has already left. Since the 3 assassinations, Li Meiyu had become suspicious of everyone in the Li family, including Li Yueying. She said, Grand Aunt, I'm going to see Grandpa for the last time. We'll talk later. After that, she was about to walk to the back hall where the coffin was parked. Li Jianya moved his feet and stood in front of her. Wait a minute, girl. There's something we haven't finished. Li Meiyu said, why can't we talk about it after I see Grandpa? Li Jianya said, although your grandpa is gone now, his last wish is still there. You can only go to see him after you fulfill his last wish, right? Then he took out a few pieces of A4 paper from his pocket and said, this is your grandpa's will. Before he died, he decided to hand over 50% of the Li family's assets to me. Take a look. Li Meiyu was shocked and then said angrily, how is it possible that 50% of the inheritance will be given to you? Why don't you say that they will all be given to you? Li Yueying said, I'll keep the remaining 50%. She also took out a will from her pocket and said, your grandpa was the eldest in this family when he was alive. There are 3 of us. After he died, he gave the inheritance to us. This is also human nature. Li Meiyu cried, that's impossible. I'm Grandpa's biological granddaughter. How can I give all the family property to you? Li Jianya said, before he left, my eldest brother said that you are a girl after all and you will get married sooner or later. If the inheritance is left to you, it will become the property of someone else's family. It's better to leave it to us. So he gave it to me and your aunt. Li Yueying said, yes, I didn't expect my eldest brother to think so. Although this will is somewhat unacceptable to you, we still have to respect my eldest brother's wishes. We can't let him die uneasily, so we reluctantly accepted it. Hearing their conversation, Uncle Cheng shouted excitedly, that's impossible. It's impossible. I've always been with the master. Why haven't I heard that he made a will? Moreover, the master loved the young lady the most when he was alive. How could he not leave any inheritance to her? Li Jianya glared at him and said, Uncle Cheng, you have to know your identity. You're just a servant of our Li family. Does my eldest brother need you to make a will? Li Yueying said, in fact, my eldest brother did leave some inheritance to the girl. He asked us to give her 1 million yuan for her living expenses. Uncle Cheng opened his mouth but did not say anything in the end. Just as Li Jianya had said, although old Master Li valued him very much when he was alive and treated him as a confidant, he was just a butler after all, not a core member of the Li family. Li Meiyu sneered and said, 1 million? Why don't you say 10,000? 1 million yuan was a drop in the bucket for the Li family's rich assets. Li Jianya said, 1 million is a lot. Do you know how many people in the world can't earn so much money in their lifetime? Li Yueying said, there's no other way. This is my eldest brother's will. It's written in his will. Besides, the 1 million yuan is not given to you for free. There are conditions. She took out a piece of A4 paper from her pocket and said, girl, have a look. This is the marriage contract that my eldest brother made for you and Zixiong before he died. According to my eldest brother's will, the 1 million yuan will only be yours after you and Zixiong get married. Otherwise, you won't get a penny. That's impossible. You're talking nonsense. Li Meiyu did not expect that these people not only wanted to rob her of her inheritance, but also made a marriage contract for her. She immediately shouted angrily, my cousin and I are 3 generations of blood relatives. How could Grandpa be so stupid to make a marriage contract for me? Li Yueying said, girl, you're wrong to say that. Your surname is Li and his surname is Wu. What's the big deal about a marriage contract? It's the same way in ancient times. She turned to Li Jianya and said, am I right, second brother? Li Jianya nodded and said, I guess my eldest brother doesn't want others to take advantage of him. As the old saying goes, don't let the goodies flow to outsiders. It's perfect for you to marry Zixiong. Chapter 6:12. Li Yueying smiled proudly and said aggressively, Meiyu, your grandfather has just passed away. You don't want to go against his will, do you? Li Meiyu cried, of course I won't go against my grandfather's will, but what you said can't be my grandfather's will. He loves me the most. He can't do this to me. Li Jianya slapped the will in his hand in front of Li Meiyu and said, this is your grandfather's will and his name is stamped on it. Why would we lie to you? Li Yueying also handed over the will in her hand and said, if you don't believe me, you can check it and see if your grandfather said so. Uncle Cheng shook his head. He knew that he couldn't interfere in this kind of thing, but he couldn't stand it anymore, so he left with a lonely look. Li Meiyu picked up the will and her face became paler as she read it. Old Master Li liked calligraphy. She often practiced calligraphy with her grandfather when she was a child, so she was very familiar with Old Master Li's handwriting. The handwriting of these 2 wills was exactly the same as that of Old Master Li, and his seal was stamped at the bottom. Li Jianya said proudly, see? This is written by your grandfather, isn't it? Li Yueying said, girl, hurry up and do as your grandfather said, or you'll be unfilial. Impossible, it's impossible. I don't believe it. I won't believe it even if you beat me to death. Li Meiyu threw away the will and shouted excitedly. Unfortunately, her struggle was too weak. The Li family's property was originally controlled by Li Jianya and Li Yueying. With these 2 wills, she really couldn't get a penny. At this moment, a harsh voice sounded beside him. My stomach hurts. My stomach hurts so much. Li Jianya turned his head and saw that it was Qin Haodong who was complaining. He frowned. He had formed a strong momentum with Li Yueying and was about to force Li Meiyu to submit, but he didn't expect that this guy would interrupt him in such an absurd way. Qin Haodong ignored his expression. He took Li Meiyu's arm and said, where's your toilet? Take me there quickly, or it'll be too late. Well, before Li Meiyu came to her senses, she was pulled out of the room by Qin Haodong. The toilet is over there. Li Meiyu took Qin Haodong to the door of the bathroom, and Qin Haodong rushed in. She stood alone outside the door and could not help but be lost for a while. Ever since she was young, it had always been her grandfather who shielded her from the wind and rain. But now that her grandfather had passed away, she had to face such a great difficulty. This made her feel a great sense of powerlessness. At this time, she urgently needed a strong arm to rely on. Grandpa, why are you leaving just like that? Did you really write that will? Li Meiyu murmured, and 2 lines of tears flowed down her white cheeks. Just then, the door of the bathroom opened and Qin Haodong walked out with a satisfied look on his face. Here, take this. Qin Haodong said and stuffed a few pieces of paper into Li Meiyu's hand. What's this? Li Meiyu asked in surprise. Qin Haodong said with a smirk on his face, I chatted with your grandfather when I was defecating just now and asked him to make a new will for you. With this, you won't be afraid that the 2 old things will make things difficult for you. Li Meiyu opened the A4 paper in her hand and found that it was another will, but the content was completely different from the one Li Jianya had. It was clearly written that Li Meiyu was the only heir of the Li family. All the property would be inherited by her, and all the Li family's property would be at her disposal. In addition to the different content, the handwriting of this will was exactly the same as the one in Li Jianya's hand. It was completely written by the same person, and the seal below was also clear. Where did you get this thing? Li Meiyu asked with a horrified face. She did not believe that Qin Haodong had her grandfather's will. If Qin Haodong had it, he would have taken it out just now, and there would be no need to go through so much trouble. But if he had made it, it would be too incredible. Don't ask so many questions. Just take it and use it. Don't let the two old things take advantage of you. Qin Haodong said, let's go and see what else they have to say this time. After that, they walked toward the morning hall together. In the morning hall, Li Jianye and Li Yueying looked at each other and saw the pride in each other's eyes. As long as they worked together, they could completely control the Li family. Li Meiyu was just a little girl. What trouble could she make? Li Jianye said, Yueying, what's the matter with this engagement? Li Yueying said, even if we get the inheritance, if this girl marries someone else, she will be a problem sooner or later. It's better for us to marry her ourselves. Then we will be completely safe. Li Jianye nodded and said, you're really thoughtful. As long as she gets married, it's impossible for her to make a comeback. While they were talking, Li Meiyu and Qin Haodong came back. After seeing her, Li Jianye said with a proud face, girl, you understand the will. It was your grandfather who insisted on giving us the inheritance, and we had no choice. He is my brother, and he has passed away. I can't go against his will. As he spoke, the old man put on a very reluctant look. It was obvious that he was still pretending to be obedient after getting the benefit. Li Yueying also said, that's right, Meiyu. You can ignore other people's words, but you can't ignore your grandpa's words. After eldest brother's funeral is settled, I'll arrange your marriage with Zixiong. Then your grandpa can rest in peace. Wu Zixiong stood behind her and kept looking at Li Meiyu with his lustful eyes. When he thought that this woman would become his wife, his eyelashes were about to bloom. Just when these people thought that Li Meiyu could only give in, she shook her head, took out a document from her bag and said, I can't give the inheritance to you, and it's impossible for me to marry Wu Zixiong. Your will is fake. The real will is in my hands. You can't take a cent of the inheritance. Then she slapped the will in her hand on the table and said, look, this is the will my grandfather left me. All the property of the Li family is mine, and it has nothing to do with you. The expressions on Li Jianying and Li Yueying's faces instantly froze. They looked at each other and then shook their heads. Old Master Li did leave a will for Li Meiyu, but the will was burned after they found it. Then they copied the handwriting of the will and made a new one in their hands. Li Jianye said, girl, our will was written by your grandfather and given to us by himself. Don't try to deceive us with a fake will. Li Meiyu said, my will was left by my grandfather. If you don't believe me, you can have a look. How can you say that it's fake? Li Jianye took the will doubtfully and carefully read it. Except that the content was different, it was exactly the same as the will in his hand. Even if such a will was taken to a professional department for identification, they would not be able to find any flaws. Li Yueying thought for a moment and said, Meiyu, even if your grandfather left you a will, according to the law, it should be decided according to the last one. Maybe your grandfather wanted to give the inheritance to you at first, but then he changed his mind. In her opinion, old Master Li must have written two wills. One was left at home and burned by them, and the other was in Li Meiyu's hands. Li Meiyu nodded in agreement and said, Grand Aunt is right. The will must be determined according to the last date. Look, my will is 2 days later than yours, so my will is valid. Li Yueying and Li Jianye were both shocked and hurriedly looked at the date behind the will. Sure enough, Li Meiyu's will was 2 days later than theirs. This, Li Jianye was shocked at first, and then he cried, that's impossible. According to the date on your will, your grandfather was sick. How could he make this will for you? Li Meiyu said, you don't have to worry about that. You just need to know that this will is true and valid. Li Yueying rolled her eyes and suddenly had an idea. She said, girl, the will is not a big deal. After all, money is just a worldly possession. The most important thing is the marriage contract your grandfather made for you and Zixiong. You must not go against his will. Then she took out a piece of paper and pushed it in front of Li Meiyu. It was the marriage contract between Li Meiyu and Wu Zixiong. Old Master Li's name was signed at the bottom, and his seal was also buckled. Hearing this, Li Jianya glared at her fiercely. This woman was really cunning. She changed her mind so quickly. As long as they could marry Li Meiyu to their family, all the Li family's inheritance would be theirs. Li Meiyu glanced at the marriage contract and then looked at Qin Haodong awkwardly. She didn't know how to solve this problem. Qin Haodong reached out and took the marriage contract. After a few glances, he said, "It seems that this old man is really confused. How can a granddaughter be betrothed to two families?" Li Yueying stared at him and said, "Who are you? What do you mean?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "It doesn't matter who I am. The key is that I also have a marriage contract. It was given to me by old Master Li himself. He said that I was so handsome that he wanted me to be his grandson-in-law. I couldn't refuse his kindness, so I reluctantly agreed. Look, the marriage contract is here." After that, he took out a piece of A4 paper from his pocket and slapped it on the table. Li Yueying was dumbfounded when she saw it. It was also a marriage contract. Li Meiyu and Qin Haodong's marriage contract was also signed with old Master Li's name and a seal. Wu Zixiong cried, "That's impossible. You're a stinky bodyguard. How could Grandpa marry Meiyu to you? Your marriage contract must be fake. It can't be counted. What's wrong with a bodyguard? What right do you have to look down on a bodyguard?" Qin Haodong said with a playful face, "I'm just too handsome. If you're not convinced, you can pee and look at yourself. How could old Master Li marry his granddaughter to you?" Wu Zixiong was so angry that he couldn't speak. In terms of appearance, he was indeed a few streets behind Qin Haodong. Chapter 613. Seeing her son being defeated, Li Yueying said with a cold face, "I know my brother very well. He would never marry Li Meiyu to a poor boy who is nothing. I think you're forging the marriage contract and trying to get the inheritance of the Li family." Qin Haodong didn't care at all. He said with a smile, "Yes, but I'm not the one who forged the marriage contract." Li Meiyu said, "I can prove that Grandpa did promise to marry me to him." Well, Li Yueying and her son were suddenly at a disadvantage because of the marriage contract and the proof of a party involved. Li Jianya frowned. He and Li Yueying had carefully planned a plot, but they were thwarted in this way. It was useless to argue with them. He said, "Well, let's stop arguing about the will and the marriage contract. The deceased is the most important thing. Let's deal with my brother's funeral first." Then he said to Li Meiyu, "Girl, go in and see your grandpa." Li Meiyu also knew that it was useless to argue with them, so she walked into the inner room with Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang. There was a crystal coffin in the middle of the inner room. Li Donghua, the founder of the Li family, was lying in the coffin. The lid of the coffin was open for the convenience of mourning. On one side of the coffin sat an old man in a green robe. He looked to be around 60 years old. His face was ruddy, and his hair and beard were neatly combed. He had the demeanor of an expert. Although they walked into the room, the old man didn't respond at all. He just sat there and murmured. It seemed that he was praying for Li Donghua. Li Jianya said, "Meiyu, your grandpa is gone. I invited Master Jia to pray for him. I believe that he will definitely go to the Nirvana world." Qin Haodong couldn't help looking at the old man when he heard that it was Master Jia. There was a faint fluctuation of spiritual power in the old man. It seemed that he was really powerful. "Grandpa." After seeing Li Donghua, Li Meiyu could no longer suppress the sadness in her heart. She cried out and rushed to him. She held his body and burst into tears. Originally, he was the only relative she had left in this world. Although the old man had always been strict with her, she knew that her grandfather loved her dearly. Now that even her grandfather had passed away, she was left alone in this world. How could she live in the future? Li Jianya rushed forward to comfort her. "Girl, don't cry. The dead can't come back to life. Just let your grandfather go in peace." Qin Haodong looked away from Master Jia and turned to Li Donghua in the coffin. His expression changed slightly. Seeing that Li Meiyu was crying too sadly, he stepped forward and comforted her. Well, don't cry. It's not a good time to cry. After that, he pulled Li Meiyu up and then seemed to unintentionally straighten old Master Li's body. He reached his hand behind his head and straightened it. Li Meiyu stopped crying and said, I want to stay here to keep vigil for Grandpa. Li Yueying said, That's right. Your grandpa has loved you for so many years. As he said that, a skinny monk walked in from outside. He looked to be in his 30s or 40s and wore a purplish-red monk robe. He was clearly a monk, but his body faintly exuded a gloomy aura. Master, you're here. Li Yueying greeted him with a happy face. She turned around and introduced the monk to Li Meiyu. This is Master Sarabanta from Thailand. He was a good friend of your grandpa when he was alive. He's here to help your grandpa. Li Meiyu said respectfully when she heard that he was a master from Thailand. Thank you, Master. Li Yueying said again, Master Sarabanta is an eminent monk and a disciple of Thailand's Master Songgang. He's very powerful. I'm sure he'll help you. Sarabanta said something in Thai that no one could understand. Then, he knelt on the futon in front of the coffin and began to pray. The scripture he recited was very strange. It sounded like he was crying, but it also sounded like Buddhist chanting. Coupled with the dim light in front of the morning hall, it sounded eerie, as if all the hair on one's body was standing on end. Master Jia opened his eyes gently and glanced at them. Then, he closed his eyes again and continued to read his Taoist scripture. Li Meiyu also found a futon and knelt down to keep vigil. Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang stood behind her. Of course, they would not leave at this time. As Sarabanta began to recite the scripture, Li Meiyu suddenly felt a little dizzy. Her eyelids became heavier and her eyes became more and more dull. She seemed to be losing consciousness. Qin Haodong immediately noticed her abnormality and looked at Sarabanta. The monk's voice was similar to Xiao Luochen's magic sound mind control. They were both ways to attack people's minds through sound. Obviously, this monk was Li Yueying's killing move. If it went on like this, Li Meiyu would unknowingly become a fool or even directly explode and die. He took half a step forward and put his palm on Li Meiyu's back. His genuine qi came out of his body and formed an air shield in front of Li Meiyu, blocking the chanting sound like a shield. After blocking Sarabanta's attack, Li Meiyu immediately became sober. She shook her head gently and did not realize anything. She thought that she was just too sleepy. Qin Haodong was not a person who would only defend without fighting back. He began to recite the silent incantation and attacked Sarabanta. Sarabanta's dim eyes lit up and his voice suddenly became several times louder. He began to fight against Qin Haodong's incantation with his own voice. But no matter how loud his voice was, it was still gradually suppressed by Qin Haodong. After a while, panic flashed in Sarabanta's eyes and sweat began to drip from his forehead. In the end, there was even a thin layer of smoke rising from his forehead. In the eyes of others, this monk was too hard to recite the incantation. In fact, his heart was already full of fear. Even though he had used all his cultivation and had even overloaded it, he still could not resist Qin Haodong's silent incantation. Moreover, this kind of direct attack on the soul made it impossible for him to retreat. He could only fight to the end. At this time, he knew that he had met a master and had no choice but to fight to the death. He flicked his right hand and a faint red light shot toward Qin Haodong. It was dark in the morning hall, so no one noticed it at all. Scanning with his spirit, Qin Haodong saw the red light clearly. It was a poisonous needle with broken poison. He sneered and flicked out a sharp gust of wind. The poisonous needle immediately changed its direction and shot toward Sarabanta at a faster speed, directly into the mouth of Sarabanta, who was chanting sutras. At the same time, the silent incantation broke out. Sarabanta's mind was like a thunderclap, directly shattering his soul. Originally, this poisonous needle was refined by him and the poison on the needle could be neutralized. But at this time, he had been shocked into an idiot by the silent incantation and could not even save himself. He could only reap what he had sown and die of the poison on the needle. Sarabanta died. At the same time, the scripture in his mouth stopped abruptly. Li Yueying was waiting not far away. She had invited Sarabanta to turn Li Meiyu into an idiot so that she could get the Li family's property. But after waiting for a long time, Li Meiyu still looked hale and hearty and did not look like an idiot at all. Just when she was impatient, Sarabanta stopped chanting, which made her even more confused. At first, she thought that the monk was just tired and wanted to take a rest, but there was still no movement. Later, she lost her patience. She patted Sarabanta on the shoulder and said, "Master, have you finished chanting?" To her surprise, Sarabanta fell to the ground with a bang. His face was pale and he was no longer breathing. Li Yueying had never expected that the monk was already dead. She jumped up in fright and hurriedly cried, "He's dead! He's dead!" Hearing her cry, everyone gathered around. Li Jianya said, "What's going on? He was fine just now. How did he suddenly die?" Li Yueying said with a pale face, "I don't know. I saw that the master stopped chanting just now, so I went to have a look. I didn't expect that he was already dead." Qin Haodong said jokingly, "Didn't you say that he was a good friend of the old master? Maybe the old master felt lonely over there, so he asked him to go with him." Li Yueying knew that Qin Haodong was mocking her, but she could not find a suitable reason. She could only say to Wu Zixiong bitterly, "Arrange someone to send the master back to Thailand immediately." Wu Zixiong waved his hand and several bodyguards immediately came over and carried Sarabanta's body out of the mourning hall. At this moment, Master Jia, who was sitting next to the coffin of the old master, slowly stood up from the ground. Li Jianya hurriedly went over and said respectfully, "Master Jia, you finished." Master Jia said, "Although I'm a layman, I practice Taoist magic arts. I've just recited the Supreme Karmic Salvation Sutra 49 times. I believe that my old friend will definitely go to the Nirvana world." "Thank you so much, Master Jia." Li Jianya thanked him again and again. Li Yueying said, "Master Jia, just now, Master Sarabanta died when he was performing Taoism for my brother. What happened? Do you know?" Master Jia said, "My old friend started from scratch and built such a big family business on his own. He was a man of great fortune. To help an old friend transcend, one must have sufficient attainment. The monk you mentioned just now is still a little lacking in attainment. Not only did he fail to transcend, he even sent himself on the path to the west. What a pity, what a pity." Although he said it was a pity, his face was full of pride. The implication was that his Taoism skills were much higher than Sarabanta's. "I see. Master Jia, you're really good at Taoism." Li Jianya was very happy. Master Jia was invited by him and Sarabanta was invited by Li Yueying. It was obvious that he was superior to Li Yueying. After a pause, he said, "Master Jia, there's one more thing that we need your help with." Chapter 614. Master Jia said, "I've been friends with your brother for many years. Your family's business is my business. Just tell me if you need anything. I'll help you." Li Jianya said, "Master Jia, my brother left me and my sister a will before he died, but Meiyu also took out a will. Now we can't tell whether the two wills are true or not. Master Jia, you're a great master and my brother's friend. You're very familiar with my brother's handwriting. I want to ask you to notarize it for us." "Really?" Master Jia said, "I've been friends with your brother for more than 30 years and I'm very familiar with his handwriting. Show me. I can tell whether it's true or not at a glance." "Thank you, Master Jia." Li Jianya took out his will and Li Yueying's. Then he turned to Li Meiyu and said, "Girl, bring your will here and ask Master Jia to notarize it for us." Li Meiyu was also very respectful to Master Jia. On the one hand, he was a very good friend of her grandpa. On the other hand, he had guided her to avoid the bloody disaster at the Shanghai Medical College. The effect was excellent, which increased her trust in Master Jia. She hesitated for a moment and then handed over her will under the encouragement of Qin Haodong. Master Jia took Li Jianya and Li Yueying's will and looked at it carefully for a long time. Then he nodded and said, "Yes, it's my old friend's handwriting. The style of speech is also in line with my old friend's habits." Then he picked up Li Meiyu's will, looked at it carefully and said, "Although this will is very similar to my old friend's handwriting, it still lacks a little charm. It doesn't have the aura of my old friend's handwriting. In my opinion, this will is forged." After he finished speaking, Li Jianya and Li Yueying were immediately overjoyed and said, "Thank you, Master Jia." After that, Li Jianya turned to Li Meiyu and said, "Girl, did you hear that? Master Jia has confirmed that your will is fake. Although you want the Li family's inheritance very much, you can't do it by hook or by crook. I'll let you off this time for the sake of your younger generation, but you'll never do it again." Li Meiyu's momentum immediately weakened. Because she trusted Master Jia, she thought that there must be a flaw in Qin Haodong's will and Master Jia must have seen through it. At this time, Qin Haodong took 2 steps forward and said to Master Jia, "Master, I'm also very familiar with handwriting. Can you tell me the difference between these 2 wills? How can you tell that this one is fake?" Li Jianya's expression darkened. "You're just a bodyguard. What right do you have to speak here?" However, Master Jia said, "I've always won people's hearts by virtue. Otherwise, I wouldn't be worthy of the title of master. Since he said so, I'll give him a result." He pointed to the 2 wills and said, "If it's an ordinary person, they can only distinguish it from the handwriting. I have to say that the handwriting of this will is so perfect that it's almost indistinguishable from the handwriting of an old friend. But at my level, I don't care about the handwriting, but the charm of these words. This will doesn't have the charm of an old friend at all." Qin Haodong shook his head and said lightly, "You can fool others with this trick, but you can't fool me. If I'm not wrong, the 2 forged wills of Li Jianya and Li Yueying were made by Master Jia. Am I right?" After hearing his words, everyone was shocked and panic flashed in Li Jianya and Li Yueying's eyes. Master Jia was still calm. After a short panic, he shouted sternly, "Ignorant boy, how dare you talk nonsense? Do you know who I am? I'm the most famous Master Jia in Hong Kong and my teacher is Mei Zhanlong, the best practitioner of magic in Hong Kong. How could I do such a dirty thing as forging a will?" Li Meiyu was also shocked by Qin Haodong's words. She quickly said, "You must be mistaken. Master Jia is definitely not that kind of person." Qin Haodong said with a smile, "Silly girl, you've been cheated. This is a typical case of helping others count the money after being sold." He glanced at Master Jia, pointed to the will on the table and said, "There are 2 auras on this will. One belongs to Li Jianya, and the other belongs to the person who wrote the will. The person who wrote the will is not your grandpa, but Master Jia. Their auras are exactly the same. It's very clear that Master Jia has colluded with your second grandpa to steal your grandpa's property. The reason why he sent you to Shanghai to study was not because of the disaster, but because he wanted to send you away so that he could kill your grandpa. It's because he is a good friend of your grandpa that he is so familiar with your grandpa's handwriting and can imitate this will." After hearing his words, Li Meiyu's expression changed greatly. She shouted, "Haodong, do you mean that my grandpa didn't die of illness, but was killed by them?" Qin Haodong nodded and said, "That's right." Master Jia's expression changed greatly. He pointed at Qin Haodong and said angrily, "Boy, don't talk nonsense. You're just an ignorant kid. Do you know anything about auras?" He turned around and said to Li Meiyu, "Girl, don't listen to the provocation of others. I'm not a person who would do such a dirty thing." Well, Li Meiyu was confused for a moment. Although she trusted Qin Haodong very much, Master Jia was very famous in Hong Kong and he had left a mark in her heart since she was a child. Subconsciously, she thought that such a thing could not happen. Qin Haodong said to Master Jia calmly, "You dare not admit what you've done. I really despise you." Master Jia said, "Boy, I can't be slandered by anyone. You can't leave here if you don't give me an explanation today." "Do you want an explanation?" "Okay, I'll give it to you now." Qin Haodong said, "There's one person who knows the truth of this matter better than anyone else." Master Jia said, "Well, please call that person over and I'll confront him face to face." "No need. He's right here." Qin Haodong pointed to the coffin and said, "The person I'm talking about is old Master Li. He knows very well which will is true and which will is false." After hearing his words, Li Jianye and Li Yueying, who were extremely nervous, immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Li Jianye said sarcastically, "Boy, is it interesting to talk about a dead man?" Qin Haodong glanced at him and said jokingly, "Are you sure that your elder brother is dead?" Li Jianye said, "Do I need to say that? Everyone can see that my elder brother has indeed passed away." Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "He would have died if he hadn't met me, but he won't die because of me." Master Jia said with disdain, "I thought you were a master, but it turns out that you're just a madman who talks nonsense. He's already dead. Do you think you can save him?" Qin Haodong looked at him coldly and said, "Didn't your master tell you that the soul taken away by the soul-taking talisman can be resurrected as long as it returns to the body in a short time?" Master Jia was shocked at first, and then he said in a panic, "I don't know what you're talking about. What's the soul-taking talisman? My old friend died of illness. What does it have to do with the soul-taking talisman? You won't give up until you see the coffin. Then I'll show you what real magic is." Qin Haodong said as he made a spell with both hands. He pointed at Li Donghua in the coffin and shouted, "Ha!" With this shout, a beam of light appeared behind Li Donghua's head. The light was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. Then it turned into a beam of light and shot at Master Jia's chest. Before he could react, there was a bang in his chest and several talismans were quickly burned. Then an illusory figure rose from the fire. It was Li Donghua. Seeing that Li Donghua's soul was taken away, Master Jia panicked. He quickly put out the burning talismans and took out a black porcelain bottle from his arms. He raised his hand and patted the bottom of the bottle. A cloud of black smoke came out and then turned into a huge skull. It opened its mouth and swallowed Li Donghua's soul fiercely. Qin Haodong made a spell and shouted, "Break!" The beam of light instantly wrapped the black skull. With a muffled bang, the skull turned into smoke and dissipated in the air. The black porcelain bottle in Master Jia's hand also turned into a mass of powder. "Take it!" Qin Haodong shouted again. The beam of light wrapped Li Donghua's soul and instantly took it into his mud-pill palace. He stepped to the coffin, reached out and massaged Li Donghua's body a few times, using greenwood genuine qi to help him dredge his slightly stiff body. Then he patted his chest and said, "Get up." Under many astonished gazes, Li Donghua actually sat up in the coffin and slowly opened his eyes, as if he had just woken up. Qin Haodong reached out and took out a mirror from the place where Li Donghua had just been lying and put it into his pocket. It turned out that when he first came here, he found that Li Donghua did not die a normal death. His soul had been forcibly taken away by someone, and that person was Master Jia, who had been guarding the coffin. If he had forcibly taken away Li Donghua's soul at that time, he would probably become an idiot even if he got it back. Therefore, he took the opportunity to put the yin-yang mirror behind Li Donghua's head to help him nourish his mud-pill palace. Now that the time was ripe, he took the opportunity to take back Li Donghua's soul. The people next to them were all dumbfounded. Li Jianye, Li Yueying, and the others were shocked at first, and then they were so scared that their faces turned pale. With what they had done, if Li Donghua came back to life, they would definitely not have a good ending. In order to fight for the Li family's property, they had done everything they could. However, they never expected that Qin Haodong would jump out of nowhere and pull Li Donghua back from the jaws of death. Li Meiyu immediately rushed to Li Donghua after the shock. She held Li Donghua's hand and cried, "Grandpa, are you really alive? Chapter 6:15. Li Donghua patted Li Meiyu on the shoulder and said, I'm sorry. After that, he stood up from the coffin and walked to Qin Haodong. He bowed deeply and said gratefully, Young man, thank you for saving my life and our family. Although his soul had been taken into the soul-controlling talisman by Master Jia, he could still hear everything that had happened in the morning hall. He knew that he would have been killed by these people if it weren't for Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong smiled and said, Old master, it's nothing. You'd better deal with your family affairs first. Well, please wait a moment. I'll deal with these beasts first and then I'll thank you. Li Donghua turned around and looked directly at Li Jianye and Li Yueying. Seeing his angry eyes, Li Jianye and Li Yueying both felt guilty and scared. They took several steps back. Li Jianye forced himself to calm down and said with an embarrassed smile, Brother, you're really lucky. It's really worth congratulating you for coming back to life. You didn't kill me, this old man, and you didn't steal my property. Do you feel very regretful? Li Donghua pointed at their noses and scolded, You two are beasts. You're worse than pigs and dogs. When my father passed away, you fought with me for my father's assets. I didn't say anything, I gave all the assets to you and came to Hong Kong alone. I built up my family business with my own blade and a gun. Later, you remembered that I was your brother when you saw that I was rich. You came here and begged me. In the end, I was soft-hearted and let you enter the Li family and let you control the family business. But I didn't expect you to kill my old man, bully my granddaughter in front of my dead body, burn my real will, forge a fake will, and rob the family business that I worked so hard to build. What else do you have to say? Li Jianye and Li Yueying's faces turned pale and they couldn't say a word. Li Donghua was still angry, so he turned to look at Master Jia. Jia, I've been friends with you for 30 years, but in the end, you colluded with that bastard Li Jianye to kill me. You used our familiarity to imitate my handwriting and forged my will. If you do this, how can you call yourself a grandmaster? How can you live up to the trust I've placed in you all these years? Master Jia was much calmer than Li Jianye. He said, My old friend, it's not that I want to hurt you, but you're doomed. Since you've already gone to the Nirvana world, why do you still want to come back and suffer in the mortal world? Bullshit. Get out of here. From today onwards, I, Li Donghua, will cut all ties with you. I have nothing to do with you anymore. After scolding Master Jia, Master Li turned around and said to Li Jianye and Li Yueying, And you too, I won't punish you for what you did to me. But from today onwards, I have nothing to do with you. Don't even think about getting a penny from the Li family. Get out of here. At this time, Li Jianye had already recovered from the shock and said, Brother, it's our fault this time. Please give us another chance. Li Yueying also said, Yes, brother, we were just confused for a moment. We won't dare to do it again. We don't want to leave you like this. Both of them knew very well that they were the elites of the upper class of Hong Kong because of the Li family. Once they were kicked out of the Li family, they would be nothing and would completely lose their current life of luxury. You don't want to leave me? I think you don't want to give up the property of the Li family. Li Donghua sneered and said, Give you another chance? Are you going to do it again if you can't kill me once? From now on, get out of the Li family immediately, or I'll send you to the police station. Qin Haodong shook his head slightly. It seemed that old Master Li still couldn't make up his mind. He was still soft-hearted to such people. Obviously, they were two wolves. If they couldn't be decisive, they would be harmed. Brother, since you're so ruthless, don't blame us. Li Jianye cried, although the hundreds of millions of yuan in your family was won by you, it doesn't belong to you alone. It belongs to the whole Li family. Your will only gave me and Yueying 10% of the shares. Why? We're your biological younger brothers and sisters. You left so much money to a woman. When she gets married, the money of our Li family will be taken advantage of by someone else. So I'm doing this to protect the property of the Li family. What's wrong with me? Qin Haodong was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that this guy could be so shameless. How thick-skinned was he? You. Li Donghua trembled with anger. I worked so hard to earn the money. If I don't give it to my granddaughter, should I give it to you, a wolf? Li Jianya sneered and said, now you have to give it to me if you don't want to. It's not up to you. Originally, I wanted to be friendly and not make things difficult. You forced me to do this. Then he shouted to the outside of the morning hall, guards. After that, more than a dozen bodyguards rushed in. He drove out all the family members loyal to Li Donghua. These were his trusted subordinates. Li Jianya's confidence was immediately boosted when he saw the armed bodyguards. He said to Li Donghua proudly, brother, you've already died once. Why do you want to come back to life again? I have to trouble myself again. But this is good. You won't be lonely on the road. I'll let them accompany you. After that, he waved to the bodyguards behind him and said, shoot and kill these people. Each of them will be rewarded 10 million yuan. A fierce look flashed across Li Yueying's face. She stared at Qin Haodong and the others and shouted, we wanted to be friendly and admit the will, but you insisted on doing this. Now, go to hell. The two of them shouted fiercely, but they found that the bodyguards did not move at all after waiting for a long time. Li Jianya waited for a long time and saw that his men still did not shoot. He turned around and said angrily, what the hell are you doing? Didn't you hear my order? Kill them and get 10 million yuan each. However, those people were still standing there without any reaction. Li Jianya was about to shout again, but Master Jia said, stop shouting. They're all dead. What? Dead? How could he have died without any reason? Li Jianya and Li Yueying were shocked. At this time, they saw the bodyguards all fall to the ground with a shiny silver needle between their eyebrows. Master Jia looked at Qin Haodong and said coldly, good job, young man. Qin Haodong smiled faintly and said, it's just a small trick. It's nothing. These people were indeed killed by Qin Haodong. Li Donghua and Li Meiyu in the morning hall did not know martial arts at all. How could they give these people a chance to shoot? Li Donghua was completely mad. He had already let them go, but these two guys still wanted to kill him and his granddaughter. They were really stubborn. Bastards, you two bastards, just wait to go to jail. A flash of panic flashed through Li Jianya's eyes. His bodyguards were all dead and Master Jia had become his last hope. He rushed over and shouted, Master Jia, kill these people as soon as possible. Li Yueying also shouted, yes, none of us can live if we don't kill them. Master Jia said, I can kill them, but we have to change the conditions we agreed on before. 10% of the Li family's shares are far from enough. You have to give me at least 30%. Li Jianya hesitated for a while and agreed. If Master Jia killed Li Donghua and the others, he could still get the Li family's property. Although it was a little less, it was much better than spending the rest of his life in jail. Li Yueying nodded hurriedly, yes, we will. Li Donghua said angrily, the Li family's property is mine. None of you can make the decision. Master Jia smiled and said with a greedy face, it's yours now, but it won't be yours soon. Then he turned to look at Qin Haodong and said, boy, if I'm not mistaken, you're a powerful warrior, aren't you? You played with the flying needles beautifully, but you're nothing in front of me, Master Jia. Qin Haodong said, well, I'd like to see what you can do to deserve the title of a master. In fact, Master Jia was not much stronger than an ant in front of him. If he used the Xian Yuan sword now, he could immediately kill Master Jia. However, Hong Kong was different from Huaxia. Feng Shui magic was very popular here, which was why people like Master Jia were born. He wanted to see what level the Feng Shui magic of Hong Kong was and how powerful it was. Li Meiyu didn't know what he was thinking. She said nervously, Haodong, don't be careless. This old guy is very powerful. Li Donghua also said seriously, yes, young man. This old guy is not a good person, but his magic is really powerful. You must be careful. He had seen Master Jia defeat a feng shui master in Southeast Asia. He was shocked by Master Jia's magic at that time. That was why he didn't dare to hold Master Jia responsible and just drove him away. In contrast, Li Jianya and Li Yueying both looked relaxed. As long as Master Jia was willing to help them, they believed that there was no problem that couldn't be solved. The only one who was calm was Nalan Wushuang. She trusted Qin Haodong more than herself. Qin Haodong said, "Don't worry. He's just a magician. He's just a swindler. It's not a big deal." Master Jia was furious when he saw that Qin Haodong looked down on him and compared him to those trickster magicians. He said, "Boy, you're courting death. I'll show you my magic today." He reached into his pocket and took out a small gourd that was shiny with oil. "Boy, didn't you just use flying needles? Now I'll show you my sword-nourishing gourd." Then he opened the lid of the gourd. A silver light flashed and shot toward Qin Haodong's eyebrows like a meteor. Chapter 6:16. Watch out, young man. Li Donghua's expression changed drastically when he saw Master Jia taking out the sword-nourishing gourd. The famous feng shui master in Southeast Asia had been killed by this small gourd. The flying sword in this small gourd was much more powerful than a bullet. It was so fast that it could kill people without leaving a trace. Master Jia looked proud after releasing the flying sword. In his eyes, Qin Haodong was already a dead man. This young man is so stupid. He is a warrior, but he didn't seize the chance to get close to me. Instead, he just stood there and waited for me to use my supernatural power. Isn't he courting death? Qin Haodong stood there calmly with a smile on his face. He had seen the flying sword clearly the moment it was shot out. It was not a flying sword at all, but a dagger condensed by ghosts. It was nourished in the gourd and could be used to kill people without leaving a trace when needed. This kind of thing might be useful to others, but it was not worth mentioning in front of him. He raised his right hand and a golden light shot out, directly drowning Master Jia's flying sword. The Xianyuan sword was a great magic weapon used by the Yellow Emperor, so it was not comparable to a flying dagger condensed by ghosts. It was crushed into pieces in the blink of an eye, and even the gourd in Master Jia's hand exploded into powder. How dare you destroy my magic weapon?" Master Jia was shocked. The sword-nourishing gourd was given to him by his master. He had used it several times and it worked every time. He didn't expect that he would not only fail to kill Qin Haodong, but also destroy his magic weapon. However, he didn't even know what Qin Haodong had done. "You have the cheek to call this broken thing a magic treasure?" Qin Haodong put away the Xianyuan sword and said disdainfully, "Do you have any good skills? Show me." "Go to hell, boy. How dare you destroy my magic weapon? I'll kill you with 100 ghosts devouring your heart." Master Jia roared angrily. His face was so ferocious that he looked more like a ferocious ghost. He didn't look like a master anymore. He reached into his robe and took out a small black bottle. He opened the bottle cap, and a wisp of black smoke came out. A gust of chilly wind blew, and the temperature of the entire morning hall seemed to drop in an instant. The black smoke seemed to contain countless malicious spirits, and they let out soul-chilling wails. Finally, these malicious spirits condensed into a huge ghost head, which opened its bloody mouth and looked incomparably fierce. This was a morning hall to begin with, and the atmosphere was cold and gloomy. With the sudden appearance of a ghost head, it instantly became incomparably sinister. Li Meiyu had never seen such a scene. She trembled with fear and held Nalan Wushuang's arm. It was the first time for Li Jianya and Li Yueying to see Master Jia use such a trick. Although they were on the same side, they were still frightened. Qin Haodong's face also darkened, and he shouted, "You call yourself a master, but you actually used such insidious means. This ghost head contained the souls of at least a few hundred people. These were all souls that he had forcibly captured and imprisoned in this bottle, never to be reincarnated. This was definitely not done by a master, but by an evil cultivator. Master Jia didn't dare to show this evil magic weapon to others. Today, he was forced by Qin Haodong to take out the evil ghost bottle. Boy, if you have anything to say it to the King of Hell. Master Jia cast an incantation, pointed at Qin Haodong, and shouted, "Eat it." The huge ghost head let out a sharp howl, opened its huge mouth, and rushed to Qin Haodong. The ghost head grew bigger and bigger. When it rushed to Qin Haodong, it was almost the size of the whole room, and its mouth was big enough to swallow an adult. The most terrible thing was that there seemed to be a malicious spirit in every part of the ghost head. They were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, and they were howling miserably. Qin Haodong shook his head slightly, raised his hand, and the yin-yang mirror appeared in his palm. He shouted, "Take it." After the yin-yang mirror appeared, the ghost head let out an unwilling howl, and then it turned into a wisp of black smoke and was taken into the yin-yang mirror. Seeing that his evil ghost bottle was broken, Master Jia was shocked at first, and then a greedy look appeared in his eyes. Qin Haodong had used the yin-yang mirror to break his magic once before, but he didn't see what it was at that time. Now that he saw the true face of the yin-yang mirror, he immediately showed a greedy look. After so many years of cultivation, he could certainly see that the yin-yang mirror was not an ordinary thing, and it was probably a legendary magic weapon. He couldn't wait to grab it and put it in his pocket. He wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and said, "Boy, give this mirror to me and we'll forget about what happened in the past. I won't interfere in the affairs of the Li family anymore. I'll let you be the son-in-law of the Li family and inherit hundreds of millions of yuan. What do you think?" Li Jianye and Li Yueying's expressions suddenly changed. If Master Jia didn't care about this matter, they would be completely useless. Qin Haodong raised his hand and put away the yin-yang mirror. He glanced at Master Jia and said disdainfully, "You're so ugly, but you're dreaming. This is my treasure. How can I give it to you?" Master Jia said angrily, "Don't think that you're great just because you have a magic weapon. If you annoy me, I can still kill you." Qin Haodong said, "Show me what you can do, but I'm running out of patience. Now you can either get out of here or die here. Boy, you're courting death." Master Jia shouted with a ferocious face and took out a golden talisman from his arms. The talisman was not very big. It was about 2 fingers wide and the length of a palm. It was golden all over and was printed with strange flame patterns. Master Jia looked solemn. This talisman was a life-saving magic weapon given to him by his teacher, Mei Zhanlong, who was known as the best magic practitioner in Hong Kong. It was called the Roaring Flame Soul Refining Talisman. Ha! He twisted his index fingers and made an incantation. The Roaring Flame Soul Refining Talisman flew into the air and burned by itself. After the talisman was burned out, only a flame the size of a fingernail was left. This flame was extremely strange. It was shining with a green light and the outside world could not feel any temperature from it. "Go to hell." Master Jia raised his hand and the green flame shot straight at Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong frowned. This was an extremely vicious magic. The green flame did not seem to be very powerful, but it could directly penetrate one's mud pill palace and burn one's divine senses. If it was any other martial artist, not only would he be killed, but his soul would also be burned into nothingness and he would never be able to reincarnate. "Since you used such a vicious method, I'll let you have a taste of your own medicine." Thinking of this, he stretched out his hand and the yin-yang mirror appeared in his palm again. He threw it at the green flame, but this time he used the yang side of the mirror. The green flame arrived in the blink of an eye and hit the yin-yang mirror. An unexpected scene happened. The green flame seemed to be rebounded and flew back at a faster speed, rushing to Master Jia's Mudpill Palace. Master Jia had released the Roaring Flame Soul Refining Talisman and was waiting to see Qin Haodong's soul burn into nothingness. To his surprise, the green flame rushed to him. "No, although he knew how powerful it was too late for him to dodge it. The green flame flashed through the mud-pill palace on his forehead and disappeared. Master Jia stood still as if he had been hit by the body-fixing spell. After pausing for a while, he fell to the ground on his back. His 3 souls and 7 spirits had been burned to ashes. There was nothing left in this world except his body. Master Jia! Master Jia! Li Jianye pushed Master Jia a few times, only to find that he was completely dead. Brother, I was wrong. Please let me go this time. It's all his fault. Otherwise, I wouldn't have killed you. As soon as Master Jia died, he lost his last support and knelt down in front of Li Donghua. Behind him, Li Donghai also knelt down. Yes, brother. We're all a family. We were just fooled by the bad guy. Please let us go this time. Li Yueying and Wu Zixiong also knelt down. They could only hope that Li Donghua would be merciful and let them go. Li Donghua ignored them. He turned to Li Meiyu and said, "Girl, what do you think we should do with these people?" Li Meiyu said, "Grandpa, please don't hate me. These people are ungrateful. You've given them so many benefits over the years, but they're not grateful at all. They don't want to repay you at all. On the contrary, they're always thinking about taking away your property. If Haodong hadn't saved us this time, we wouldn't even know how we died. They didn't consider that we're a family and they wouldn't give us any chance to live." Li Donghua nodded and said, "Then what do you want to do?" Li Meiyu said, "Call the police. They bribed the bodyguards and tried to murder us. They've taken a lot of money from the Li family over the years. We need to thoroughly investigate the accounts they're in charge of and make them stay in prison for the rest of their lives." Li Jianye and Li Yueying's faces turned green after hearing Li Meiyu's words. No matter whether they could be convicted of murder or not, the money they had taken away over the years was enough to sentence them to life in prison. Li Jianye cried, "Little girl, how can you be so cruel? I'm your second grandpa. You can't do this to me." However, Li Yueying played the emotional card and said pitifully, "Meiyu, I'm your grandaunt. I loved you the most when you were a child. Please be merciful and don't send us to prison. We can give up the inheritance right and leave the Li family." Li Meiyu glanced at her and said coldly, "Since the moment you attacked Grandpa, we've lost all family ties. Besides, the Li family's inheritance has nothing to do with you at all. There's no such thing as giving up or not." Then she took out her mobile phone and called the police. Chapter 617. Li Donghua nodded and said with satisfaction, "Girl, you're better than me. If I had been as decisive as you, I wouldn't have been in trouble today. Seeing you like this, I can hand over the Li's group to you without any worries." Seeing that Li Meiyu really called the police, Li Jianye and the others were completely panicked. They got up from the ground and ran away, but they were all kicked to the ground by Qin Haodong before they could run a few steps. The Li's group was one of the largest consortiums in Hong Kong. The Li family called the police without any delay. Soon, more than a dozen policemen arrived. Old Master Li explained the situation. He said that Li Jianye and the others had bribed the bodyguards of their family and intended to kill him and Li Meiyu. As for Master Jia, in order to avoid some trouble, he directly said that he had died of a sudden illness. Anyway, there were no scars on Master Jia's body, so it was no different from a normal death. As for the dozen bodyguards, it was self-defense and the police would not hold them responsible. The Li family still had some power in Hong Kong. Soon, Li Jianye and the others were all taken away by the police. Li Meiyu called Uncle Cheng and asked him to dispose of all the bodyguards' bodies. As for Master Jia, he was directly sent back to his master, Mei Zhanlong. After dealing with these things, Li Donghua directly invited Qin Haodong and Nailan Wushuang to the living room and asked his family to prepare a sumptuous meal. They chatted while eating. He picked up his glass and said to Qin Haodong respectfully, "Brother medical sage, Kwahai recommended you to me some time ago. To be honest, I didn't believe it at first. Today, I finally see what a young talent is like. You're really young and promising. Thank you for saving the two of us and our Li family. Let me toast you with this cup of wine. Then he picked up his glass and drank it up. Li Meiyu said angrily, Grandpa, I thought that damn Master Jia was a genius at first. It turned out that he sent me to Huaxia to kill you. He colluded with Li Jianya and the others to cause the bloody disaster. It's all my fault. I've been blind all these years. Li Donghua sighed when he said that. Then, a worried look flashed across his face. He said to Qin Haodong, medical sage, to tell you the truth, may our Li family have implicated you this time? Qin Haodong didn't care and said leisurely, are you talking about Master Jia's master? Mei Zhanlong, who is known as the best in the world of spells in Hong Kong. Li Donghua said, yes, I'm worried about him. He deserves his reputation. Mei Zhanlong is a man with real ability. Master Jia's real name was Zhao Yang, and he was Mei Zhanlong's favorite disciple. Now that he's dead, we can say that it was a normal death to the police, but we definitely can't hide it from Mei Zhanlong. I'm afraid that he will harm Brother Medical Sage. What do you think about this? After this meal, you should go back to Huaxia. Although Mei Zhanlong is arrogant, he is only limited to Hong Kong. I don't think he dares to go to Huaxia. Qin Haodong said, don't worry, master. It's just Mei Zhanlong. I don't care about him. He really didn't think much of Mei Zhanlong, who was the best in spells in Hong Kong. Since he could teach such an evil disciple, his master must be no better. It would be fine if Mei Zhanlong didn't make trouble for him, but if he really took the initiative to come to him, he wouldn't mind getting rid of him for the sake of the people. Moreover, he couldn't leave. He was not afraid of Mei Zhanlong, but the Li family couldn't deal with him. If he left, Mei Zhanlong would vent his anger on the Li family. Li Donghua was a sophisticated man, so he naturally understood what Qin Haodong was thinking. Although he was moved, he still tried to persuade him, Brother Medical Sage, you provoked Mei Zhanlong to save me this time. Of course, the Li family should take responsibility for this matter. And don't underestimate Mei Zhanlong. I know him very well. He won the title of the most powerful man in Hong Kong by stepping on countless people's heads. In the past, he also killed countless people. He is definitely not a soft-hearted person. What's more, he has been doing very well in Hong Kong over the years and has countless believers and supporters. As long as he waves his hand, countless people will immediately stand up to fight against you. So you'd better hide and don't be impulsive. Qin Haodong believed what Li Donghua said. Master Jia, a disciple of his, was so famous in Hong Kong, let alone Mei Zhanlong himself. However, these things could not affect his firm Taoist heart. If he was scared away by Mei Zhanlong's name, he would not be able to transcend the mortal world and transcend the heavenly tribulation in the future. Old master, I know what you're saying. Although I'm helping you, I'm still the one who killed him. I've decided to stay in Hong Kong for 7 days. If Mei Zhanlong comes, I'll solve the problem together. If he comes to me after 7 days, you can tell him my contact information. At that time, he can go to Huaxia or other places to meet me. I'll accept all his requests. Seeing that Qin Haodong's tone was firm and confident, Li Donghua shook his head and said, in addition to Mei Zhanlong, there's another problem. That is Master Song Gang, Sarabanta's master. Song Gang is more famous in Thailand than Mei Zhanlong in Hong Kong. Although they wear monk robes and call themselves masters, they actually practice tame head, which is extremely strange and cruel. Now that Sarabanta has died here, Song Gang will definitely blame it on you. With his vengeful character, he will definitely come to make trouble for you. Qin Haodong nodded and said, I hope he can come within 7 days. It's best to solve the problem together. Li Donghua was moved. If Qin Haodong really left, Mei Zhanlong might give the Li family a chance to defend themselves, but Song Gang would never do that. It was very likely that he would use strange tame head to retaliate against the Li family. Brother Medical Sage, thank you so much. You are a great benefactor of our Li clan, and also our great benefactor. Qin Haodong said, "You're welcome, sir. It's nothing. Besides, I'm your bodyguard now. Since I've signed a contract with you, I naturally have the responsibility to protect Miss Li." Li Donghua sighed sincerely and said, "It's a blessing for our Li family to hire a bodyguard of your level. If it weren't for you, our Li family would be finished this time." Qin Haodong said, "By the way, sir, I happen to want to talk to you about something. My contract with Meiyu will end here. I still have a lot of things to do. I really can't be Meiyu's personal bodyguard anymore." Hearing Qin Haodong's words, a flash of panic flashed across Li Meiyu's face. Although she used to be jealous, Qin Haodong was still by her side after all. Without this contract, it would be difficult for her to see him again. Li Donghua also said eagerly, "Brother medical sage, why? Do you think the price is too low?" "It's indeed a little low with your ability, but we can talk about the money. Just name a number and our Li family will definitely satisfy you." Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "Sir, it's really not about the money. I really have a lot of things to do." Li Donghua said with a regretful face, "I understand. With your talent, it's really unfair for you to only be a bodyguard." Qin Haodong said, "Sir, I can also see that the security in your home is really not good. If you want, I can transfer some excellent bodyguards from Daddy's security company for you. They can completely protect the safety of Miss Li." Li Donghua said with a happy face, "That's great. Thank you. It's really not easy to find a capable and loyal bodyguard now." He thought for a moment and said, "Well, you can transfer 20 people to me first. If it's not enough, I'll call you later." Qin Haodong said, "No problem. I'll make a call later. I think they'll arrive in Hong Kong tomorrow." "That's great. With them, the safety of our Li family will be guaranteed." Li Donghua waved his hand to Uncle Ching next to him. Uncle Ching immediately sent a check over. He pushed the check in front of Qin Haodong and said, "Brother medical sage, you've helped our Li family so much this time. This is a little money to show my respect. Please accept it." Qin Haodong glanced at the check. It turned out to be a denomination of 1 billion yuan. It seemed that the old man was quite generous. However, Li Meiyu was infatuated with him. Although he couldn't accept it, it was not appropriate for him to take her money. He said, "Sir, Meiyu and I are friends. It's my duty to help her. Don't take the money." Hearing that Qin Haodong regarded her as a friend and refused the check of 1 billion yuan for her, Li Meiyu's heart warmed and the disappointment on her face lessened. Li Donghua said, "I'm too abrupt, but I'll feel guilty if I don't express my sincerity. How about this? Sir Owen will hold an auction in Hong Kong tonight. It happens to be held in an auction house under our Li family. Brother medical sage, go ahead and bid for whatever you like. It'll be a small gift from our Li family." Qin Haodong thought for a moment. It was not good to refuse him. Anyway, he and Nailan Wushuang had nothing to do these days. It would be good to go to the auction house. He said, "Then let's do as the old man said. Let's go to the auction tonight." Li Meiyu said, "Grandpa, is Sir Owen going to hold an auction again? I want to go and have a look." Li Donghua said, "Meiyu, you don't have to go. From today on, I'll officially retire. The entire Li family's property will be handed over to you. Besides, such a big thing has just happened. You have to take over the property of those two beasts. There are a lot of things to do." "All right, Grandpa." Li Meiyu had matured a lot after this incident. Although she was quite disappointed, she did not say anything. Qin Haodong said, "Sir, do you know what good things will be at this auction?" Li Donghua said, "Dr. Owen's auction is extremely rare. I've inquired about it before. Most of the antiques at this auction are from Huaxia. The most famous one is the snake head of the 12 zodiac bronze heads." Chapter 618. What? A snake head? Qin Haodong almost jumped up when he heard the news. He was looking for the bronze head to improve his cultivation. He was naturally excited when he heard the news about the snake head. Originally, he wanted to spend time at the auction, but now it seemed that he had to go. Li Dongguo was slightly stunned. He didn't understand why Qin Haodong was so excited. As far as he knew, a bronze head was only sold for more than 10 million Hong Kong dollars, which couldn't be compared with the 1 billion yuan check on the table. He asked doubtfully, "Brother medical sage, what's the problem?" Qin Haodong also knew that he had lost his composure, so he quickly said, "I heard that the bronze head was stolen from Huaxia. I've always wanted to find it and give it to the country. I accidentally heard the news about the snake head, so I was a little excited. Please excuse me, sir. I didn't expect you to be a patriotic person." Li Dongguo said, "I also had the same idea when I first heard the news. I wanted to buy the snake head and give it to Huaxia. Sir, you don't have to worry about it. Leave it to me." Qin Haodong wanted the upper-level spirit stones in the bronze head. As for the bronze head, he would definitely return it to Huaxia later. Then he asked, "Sir, who is this Sir Owen?" Li Dongguo said, "Sir Owen is a great man. He is from the Empire of the Unsetting Sun due to historical reasons. He has a large number of properties in Hong Kong and lives in Hong Kong for most of the year. In his words, he prefers the climate and cultural environment of Hong Kong to the Empire of the Unsetting Sun. The reason why people call him Sir is not out of respect, but because he is indeed a marquis appointed by the Empress of the Unsetting Sun. People often say that I am one of the top 10 richest people in Hong Kong. In fact, this kind of statistics is not scientific. If I compare myself with Sir Owen, his wealth is far greater than mine." However, he was a collector. He had exchanged all his money for all kinds of collections, whether they were from East Asia, Europe, or America. He had collected all kinds of antiques. No one knew how many collections he had in his warehouse. Someone once secretly calculated his assets, but the result was inestimable because the value of antiques rose too fast. For example, 40 years ago, someone bought 3 bronze heads for $4,500. Now, the price had increased by thousands of times. So everyone knows that Sir Owen is very rich, but we can't calculate his specific assets. Qin Haodong nodded and said, "Do you know how this bronze head fell into Sir Owen's hands?" Li Dongguo said, "I don't know the details, but it's said that Sir Owen's ancestor was an officer of the empire where the sun never sets. He once participated in the invasion of Huaxia more than 100 years ago and brought back a lot of treasures from Huaxia. His family also began to develop at that time." I've never heard of Sir Owen buying a snake head before. It seems that his ancestor must have brought it back from Huaxia. Qin Haodong's heart skipped a beat and he said, "That is to say, in addition to this snake head sculpture, Sir Owen may have other sculpted heads of the 12 zodiacs?" Li Dongguo said, "I'm not sure about this old man. In short, he only took out a snake head this time." Qin Haodong thought for a moment. It was already very good for a person to have a treasure like the bronze head sculpture of the 12 zodiacs. He should get this snake head sculpture first. After that, he asked Li Dongguo about Sir Owen's situation in detail. Seeing that it was almost time, he said, "Sir, we've almost finished eating. I'll go to the auction now." For him now, nothing was more important than this snakehead sculpture. Li Dongguo said, "Well, I'll ask Uncle Cheng to send you there now." Qin Haodong said, "There's no need. Sir has a lot of things to do at home and he needs help. Just give me a car and we'll go there by ourselves." Li Dongguo thought about it and agreed. His family was in a mess now and many things needed to be sorted out from scratch. He couldn't do without Uncle Cheng, so he said, "Well, I'll ask someone to arrange a car right away." Li Meiyu said, "Haodong, I've told the person in charge of the auction and they've already prepared the bidding number plates for you. The funds have not been used yet. You can buy whatever you like at that time. You don't have to worry about the price." Qin Haodong felt that although it had only been half a day, this girl was much more mature than before, as if she had grown up all of a sudden. That's very kind of you. Qin Haodong patted Li Meiyu on the shoulder and said, if you need any help, just tell me. After that, he left the Li family's villa with Nalan Wushuang. Looking at their backs, a touch of loneliness flashed across Li Meiyu's face, and then she sighed softly. Little girl, have you fallen for him? Li Donghua stood behind Li Meiyu and saw his granddaughter's expression clearly. There was nothing to hide from her grandfather. Li Meiyu nodded and said softly, but he has too many girlfriends. Li Donghua said, it's impossible for any woman to monopolize a man like the medical sage. If you like him, you have to be prepared to accept other people's ideas. Li Meiyu said with a gloomy look, even if I can accept him, he doesn't like me. After all, his girlfriends are too excellent and can help him a lot, but I can't. Li Donghua said, my granddaughter is also excellent. Our Li family has hundreds of millions of yuan and is also a famous family in Hong Kong. You can show him your achievements, and then he will naturally see your excellence. I know, Grandpa. At this moment, Li Meiyu's eyes were full of fighting spirit. In a valley in Thailand, the sun was shining brightly, the vegetation was lush, and the scenery was beautiful. It was like a fairyland on earth. There was a magnificent temple on the hillside. The temple occupied a large area, and in the spacious courtyard sat an old monk. The monk looked to be in his 70s or 80s, wearing a red frock. He was not too tall, but he was very fat. He was more than 1.7 meters tall and weighed more than 100 kilograms. He was the most famous Buddhist Zen master in Thailand, Song Gang. In public, he was an eminent monk, but in private, he had a secret identity, the master of black magic. At this time, the temple door opened and two men in black came in carrying a sack. Zen master, the blood food you want is here. Song Gang opened his eyes and said, open the bag and then you can go out. Yes, Zen master. The two men answered and opened the sack. There was a young man in his 20s inside. What are you doing? Why did you catch me? The young man looked around and immediately saw Song Gang as if he had seen his savior. He stepped forward and cried, Master, please save me. Song Gang smiled kindly and said, young man, don't worry. I'll help you. After that, he waved his hand and the two men in black immediately left and closed the gate of the temple. Since the men in black had left, the young man breathed a sigh of relief and said, Master, where am I? How can I go back? Song Gang said, it's very simple. I'll send you away now. After that, his expression changed greatly. The kindness on his face disappeared, and his face was as ferocious as a ghost from hell. He shook his arms and let out an extremely unpleasant roar. Then a horrible scene happened. Countless red beetles crawled out of Song Gang's body. These insects were as big as a dollar coin, and the small ones were as small as sesame seeds. They were mixed together so densely that people could not help but feel creeped out. After releasing these insects, Song Gang's body suddenly lost more than half of its weight. He became as skinny as a match from more than 100 kilograms. He looked like a completely different person. After these red beetles crawled out, they immediately rushed to the young man like a gust of wind and completely covered him in the blink of an eye. Ah, the young man let out a heart-wrenching scream. He wanted to struggle, but he could not resist these beetles at all. After 2 or 3 minutes, these red beetles seemed to be much brighter and flew back to Song Gang's body like a tide. When the last beetle disappeared, Song Gang once again returned to his original appearance, and his whole body became fat. The young man had completely disappeared, not even leaving a piece of cloth on his body. It was as if he had never been here. Song Gang sat down cross-legged and murmured. He was actually reciting the Ksitigarbha Sutra for the young man to help him. After a while, the gate of the temple opened again and a middle-aged monk in his 40s or 50s rushed in. He was Song Gang's eldest disciple, Bonachai. After entering the temple, Bonachai said in a low voice, Master, something happened to junior brother. Song Gang stopped chanting and slowly opened his eyes. What's going on? He asked. Bonachai said, Junior brother went to Hong Kong and was killed there. Who dared to kill my disciple? Song Gang's expression immediately became gloomy. He did not care about Sarah Banta's life or death. What he cared about was that someone dared to offend his dignity. He had always been a ruthless and vengeful person. All of his enemies had already been killed. Bonachai said, It's not clear yet. Junior brother was poisoned to death by his own poison needle. It can be seen that the person is definitely a master. I don't care who he is. He can only die if he dares to hurt my disciple. Song Gang stood up and said, Pack your things and then go to Hong Kong with me. I'd like to see who that person is. Bonachai said respectfully, Master, I can handle this kind of trivial matter. You don't have to do it yourself. Song Gang said softly, Hong Kong is rich and there are many rich people. It's also a place where there are many masters. I haven't been out for a long time. It's a good time to go there. Chapter 619. On a hill on the outskirts of Hong Kong, there was an extremely beautiful and luxurious manor. Although Hong Kong was economically developed, it was only a small island. It was not an exaggeration to say that every inch of land here was worth its weight in gold. It was already very extravagant to be able to own a house here, but the owner of this manor occupied the top of a small hill, which showed how rich he was. The person who lived here was none other than Mei Zhanlong, who was known as the #1 magician in Hong Kong. In front of the manor, there was a huge parking lot. At this time, it was full of all kinds of luxury cars. These people had come specially to visit Mei Zhanlong. In the living room of the manor, an old man in his 60s was talking to a middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s with a smile on his face. The old man was also a well-known rich man in Hong Kong. Although he was not a top rich man, his net worth was more than 10 billion yuan. Even with such an identity, the middle-aged man opposite him still looked impatient. For no other reason than that his master was Mei Zhanlong and he was the steward of this manor. The steward said impatiently, Mr. Zhang, I've already told you that Master Mei is in seclusion these days and has no time to receive you. The old man said, Young man, can you make an exception? I do have some urgent matters and I need Master Mei's guidance. How about I increase the fee by 10 times? How about 10 million yuan, 10 million yuan? The steward smiled disdainfully and said with pursed lips, Do you think Master Mei cares about your little money? The reason why Master Mei charges for guiding you is that he is afraid that there will be too many people coming. It's just a formality. The old man nodded repeatedly and said with a face full of smiles, Yes. 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 I also know this. Master is an otherworldly master. How could he care about money? However, I really have an urgent matter to discuss with Master today. Please make an exception for me, little brother. The steward raised his hand and pointed to the door. He said impatiently, There are so many people who want to see Master Mei every day. How can I make an exception? Just wait normally. I think it will be your turn in 2 months. Well, the old man was very helpless, but he did not dare to say anything. This was Master Mei's mansion. Even if he was dissatisfied, he did not dare to show it. He turned around and left. The steward smiled contemptuously, his eyes filled with disdain. There were countless people who came to see Master Mei every day. This old man claimed that he had an urgent matter, but he didn't know how to be flexible. He didn't even give her a red packet. How could she let him see Master Mei? At this moment, a servant ran over and said to the steward, Sir, the Li family just sent Master Zha's body back. They said that he died of a sudden illness. What should we do? What? Master Zha is dead? The steward was shocked and stood up. Mei Zhanlong had no children in his life. He only had 2 disciples. His eldest disciple was Yi Chenzi, and his second disciple was Master Zha, Zhao Yang. Generally speaking, Mei Zhanlong and Yi Chenzi rarely went out. It was Zhao Liang who made friends with the rich people in Hong Kong. With Mei Zhanlong's power, no one in Hong Kong dared to provoke Master Zha. Moreover, Master Zha himself was amazing. How could he die so easily? The servant said, yes, he's dead. Now his body is placed in the back hall. There are no wounds on the surface of his body. It does seem that he died of illness. The steward thought for a moment and said, this matter is very important. We can't make the decision. Master is cultivating in seclusion. Please go and ask Senior Brother Ichenzi to come here. The servant said, Senior Brother Ichenzi just went out to attend an auction. He never takes his mobile phone with him when he goes out. I think he will come back at night. The steward thought for a moment and said, Master can't be disturbed when he is cultivating in seclusion. Let's put the body away first and wait for Senior Brother Ichenzi to come back. Qin Haodong and Nailan Wushuang went to the auction house together. This was the property of the Li family and it was a high-end business. Those who could attend the auction here were all successful people in Hong Kong and were rich. Moreover, it was a business for members. Every time there was an auction, they would send invitations to members. No one could enter without an invitation. They came here temporarily, so they naturally didn't have an invitation. When they came to the door, Qin Haodong saw that he couldn't enter, so he called Tian Yi, the person in charge of the auction house. Tian Yi had already received Li Meiyu's arrangement in advance. When he heard that Qin Haodong was coming, he immediately said politely, Mr. Qin, please wait a moment. I'll go out to pick you up now. After hanging up the phone, he hurried to the door. The female secretary next to him was stunned. This was a high-end auction house and Tian Yi met the rich people in Hong Kong every day. She had never seen him lose his composure like this. Of course, the female secretary didn't know what was on Tian Yi's mind. He had been the person in charge of the auction house for a long time. There were not many guests personally arranged by Li Donghua. It was absolutely unique that Mr. Qin could get unlimited funds to bid for the auction. Although he didn't know where Mr. Qin came from, it could be seen how noble his identity was. The Li family attached great importance to him, so he didn't dare to neglect him. After making the phone call, Qin Haodong and Nailan Wushuang stood at the door and waited. A handsome man and a beautiful woman stood there, naturally attracting countless people's attention. At this moment, a young man dressed in luxury brands came over. Apart from other things, his outfit alone was worth millions of yuan. He was also wearing a limited edition Patek Philippe gold watch on his wrist. It was obvious that he came from a rich family. There was a beautiful woman in the young man's arm. Qin Haodong glanced at her and felt that she was a little familiar. Later, he remembered that the woman was a female star in a certain advertisement. Mr. Bao, you're here. Many people stopped to greet the young man, but the young man looked arrogant. He was Bao Mingyu, the young master of the Bao family. He had enough capital to be proud. He was in charge of the most famous entertainment company in Hong Kong and had countless stars under his management. The woman beside him was a small star he had just fallen in love with. With other identities and statuses, no matter which woman he liked in Hong Kong, he would take the initiative to throw himself at her. Bao Mingyu came to the door and showed his invitation. When he was about to enter, he saw Nailan Wushuang standing next to him. He was suddenly stunned and the feeling of amazement made his brain short-circuit. He had seen countless beautiful women over the years, and he had even slept with countless beauties. But he had never seen such a beautiful and elegant woman. She was simply a goddess in his heart. When he came to his senses, he got rid of the small star beside him and quickly walked to Nailan Wushuang. His eyes were shining and he said, "Hello, beautiful lady." As for Qin Haodong, who was dressed in ordinary clothes, he directly ignored him. Nailan Wushuang looked at Bao Mingyu in surprise and asked, "Sir, what can I do for you?" "Let me introduce myself. I'm Bao Mingyu, the president of Hong Kong Entertainment Company. This is my business card." Bao Mingyu handed a gilded business card to Nailan Wushuang as he spoke. In his opinion, the woman in front of him would definitely change her attitude after receiving his business card. Nowadays, every woman dreamed of being a star, and the more beautiful the woman was, the more she wanted to be a star. Moreover, Hong Kong Entertainment Company was very famous in Hong Kong and even in Huaxia. It was enough to make this woman fall for him and even throw herself at him. However, he was disappointed. Naylan Wushuang frowned and took the business card politely. After glancing at it, her expression didn't change at all. She just held the business card casually in her hand and didn't intend to put it away. It seemed that if he was not by her side, she would probably throw it into the trash can behind her. What's going on? Things were a little different from what he had expected. Could it be that this woman didn't know what his identity represented? He pretended to smile like a gentleman and continued, "Beautiful lady, can you tell me your name?" Naylan Wushuang took Qin Haodong's arm and smiled politely. "Sorry, my boyfriend doesn't like me to tell strangers my name." Although she said it in a euphemistic way, the meaning of her refusal was very clear. Bao Mingyu's expression changed slightly. It was the first time for a woman to refuse him directly. But the more she refused, the more he wanted to conquer her. He continued, "Lady, in fact, I want to tell you one thing. You are so beautiful and have a good temperament. It's a waste that you don't become a star. If you are willing to join my Hong Kong Entertainment Company, I promise I will make you famous in half a year or 3 months. You will become a star in Huaxia and even a best actress in the world. At that time, the red carpet in Cannes, the Oscars, countless flowers and applause, and countless fans will all be yours." He talked incessantly and the little star next to him was full of jealousy. The reason why she had tried so hard to stay with Bao Mingyu was because of all this. But it was obvious that this playboy was going to fall in love with someone else and promised all this to the woman in front of him. Naylan Wushuang slightly frowned and interrupted Bao Mingyu, "Mr. Bao, I'm really sorry. I'm not interested in being a female star. I prefer my current life." Bao Mingyu's face turned red like a rooster whose neck had been choked, and he couldn't say a word. In the past, whenever he said these words to any woman, the woman's eyes would immediately light up and she would like to take off his clothes and have sex with him. But the woman in front of him completely subverted his understanding. His dream of becoming a star could not tempt her at all. He was angry. "Since you don't like being a star, you must like money. No woman in the world can resist the temptation of money." Thinking of this, he took out a Rolls-Royce key from his pocket and gave it to Naylan Wushuang, saying, "This is a new car I bought a week ago. It's worth 5 million yuan. As long as you tell me your name and become friends with me, this car is yours." Seeing all this, the jealousy in the starlet's eyes intensified. She wanted nothing more than to rush up and snatch the key for herself. Chapter 620. Naylan Wushuang's face instantly became cold. If Gao Yuming had been testing her politely before, now he was insulting her. She said in a cold voice, "I don't want your car and I don't want to see you again. Please leave." Hearing this, the little star finally breathed a sigh of relief. No matter who the woman in front of her was, it would be fine as long as she did not threaten her position. She said to Bao Yuming in a coquettish voice, "Young master, it's getting late. The auction is about to start. Let's hurry up and go in." Gao Yuming was angry in his heart and the fake smile on his face disappeared. He said to Naylan Wushuang angrily, "I really don't know what a woman like you is thinking. You have such a good resource but you don't know how to use it. What's the use of guarding such a poor boy? He can't even enter the auction. As long as you are with me, I can take you to the auction with a wave of my hand. I will buy you whatever you want." In his opinion, the reason why Qin Haodong and Naylan Wushuang were standing at the door was that they wanted to enter the auction but did not have an invitation. Naylan Wushuang suddenly became angry. She could bear other things, but this annoying guy in front of her insulted Qin Haodong. This was her reverse scale and she could not bear it in any case. "Get out of here." Naylan Wushuang burst out and threw the business card in her hand at Bao Yuming's face. "You, Bao Yuming never dreamed that Nalan Wushuang would slap his face in public. But this was a public place and it was not convenient for him to lose his temper. He could only glare at Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang, and then bitterly took the little star into the auction house. What the hell? Nalan Wushuang was obviously still angry and her full chest was heaving violently. It's not worth getting angry with such a person. Qin Haodong said with a smile, he is the boss of an entertainment company. Don't you want to be a star? Nalan Wushuang said, if you open an entertainment company, I will be a star for you. Qin Haodong said, forget it. I'm not interested in that thing. While they were talking, Tianyi rushed out of the venue. When he saw Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang, he was slightly stunned at first, and then he stepped forward and asked, are you Qin Haodong, Mr. Qin? Qin Haodong nodded. It's me. Tianyi was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that the distinguished guest who was valued so highly by the Li family was so young. However, as the person in charge of the auction company, he was very shrewd and didn't show any abnormality. He said respectfully, I'm sorry, Mr. Qin. I'm late. Qin Haodong said lightly, nothing. Let's go in. Both of you, please follow me. Tianyi made way for them and respectfully let them into the auction house. The auction house owned by the Li family was one of the top auction houses in Hong Kong. The interior was spacious and luxurious. When they walked in, the store was already full of customers, waiting for the auction to begin. After Bao Mingyu led the little star into the auction house, the little star couldn't help but exclaim, Master Bao, this auction house is really big. Of course, this is the most famous auction house in Hong Kong. Bao Mingyu said proudly, it's a membership system. Ordinary people can't come in. For example, the two people at the door can't come in unless they are escorted by an important person. They can only stand outside and watch. The little star said with a flattering face, it seems that you are a member here, Master. Of course, I'm a gold member here. I spend more than 100 million yuan here every year. Bao Mingyu proudly pointed to a row of seats in the front of the hall and said, these seats are specially prepared for gold members. Ordinary people can only sit in the back. The little star said, young master, can I sit here with you? Bao Mingyu said, of course. Gold members can bring one person to the auction with them. That's great. I'm really benefiting from Master Bao. After the little star sat down with Bao Mingyu, she suddenly saw several extremely luxurious seats at the front of the hall. She asked, Master Bao, who are those seats for? Bao Mingyu said, those seats are not ordinary. They are the supreme VIP seats in the entire auction house. Those who can sit in those seats are either famous people in Hong Kong, such as the governor of Hong Kong, Master Mei Zhanlong, or his disciples. They are billionaires and VIPs who spend more than 10 billion yuan in the auction house. At this point, his eyes flashed with envy, jealousy, and hatred. One day, I will definitely be able to sit there. He was looking forward to the future with a look of longing on his face. Suddenly, his expression froze when he saw Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang walking in together. How did these two get in? He drew a question mark in his heart, and then he felt relieved. In his opinion, Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang must have sneaked in. What's the use of coming in? The seats here have been arranged. Let's see where you are sitting. Do you want to attend the auction standing? That will only make you a laughing stock. While he was thinking, he saw Tianyi leading Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang past him. They went straight to the front and then sat down on a supreme VIP seat. The supreme VIP seat was a leather sofa for two people. It not only looked extremely luxurious, but also much more comfortable than the seats in the back. Bao Mingyu's eyes suddenly widened. What the hell was going on? Even he was not qualified to sit in the supreme VIP seat. How could these two people who did not even have an invitation letter sit there? Just now, he had laughed at the little star that these two people could only stand outside the door and watch. He did not expect that in the blink of an eye, they would sit in the seat he had been dreaming of. This made him feel a burning feeling on his face. After Tianyi arranged the two people, he said goodbye to Qin Haodong and went to the back of the auction house. At this time, the little star also noticed Qin Haodong and Nalan Wushuang. She said, "Master, didn't you say that only people with high status can sit in the supreme VIP seat? Why are they sitting there?" "Well." Bao Mingye thought for a moment and said, "I know. They must be Tian Ye's relatives or friends. He let them in secretly and then they sat in the supreme VIP seat because there was no seat arrangement." Speaking of this, he became more and more angry. Tian Yi is getting bolder and more unruly. I'm a friend of Li Donghai, the eldest young master of the Li family. I must complain about him the next time I meet him. While they were talking, there was a commotion at the entrance of the venue and a middle-aged man in his 50s came in. This man was wearing a cyan robe and there was a yin-yang fish of the 8 trigrams Tai Chi pattern printed on his chest. His hair was coiled on top of his head with a hairpin like that of the ancient people. If he held a horsetail whisk in his hand, he would look more like a Taoist priest. If this man walked on the street, he would definitely attract countless people's attention and even laugh at him. But it was different here. Many people stood up and greeted him when they saw him. Their eyes were full of admiration. "It's Master Ichinzi." Master Ichinzi actually came to attend today's auction. Master Ichinzi is so handsome. He's like a master. "Hello, Master Ichinzi. When can I have a look at my fortune?" No wonder people were so excited. It turned out that this man was Ichinzi, the eldest disciple of Mei Zhanlong, the #1 Dharma caster in Hong Kong. Ichinzi had the demeanor of a master. Although he was pursued by many people, he was calm and always had an unfathomable smile on his face. Compared with Master Jia, Ichinzi seldom came out. This did not reduce his reputation. On the contrary, it raised his status and status. Qin Haodong took a look at Ichinzi and waved to a waiter who was standing next to him. He asked, "Who is this man?" The waiter said, "Sir, this is Master Ichinzi. He's the eldest disciple of Master Mei Zhanlong. His Taoist magic is very profound." At this time, the waiter was full of doubts. He did not know who this young man was. Why was he sitting in the supreme VIP seat? But he did not know the famous Master Ichinzi. It was said that he was the eldest disciple of Mei Zhanlong, which meant that he was Master Jia's senior brother. Was he here to seek revenge? Of course, Qin Haodong did not care about Master Ichinzi. What he cared about was the auction. He did not want to be disturbed by any accident. As soon as Ichinzi appeared in the hall, Tian Yi immediately greeted him. He politely invited him to the front and sat in a supreme VIP seat next to Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong breathed a sigh of relief. This guy was not here to make trouble for him. It seemed that he did not know that Master Jia had been killed by him. It would be fine as long as it did not affect today's auction. After sitting down, Ichinzi glanced at Qin Haodong, who was sitting next to him, with a touch of surprise in his eyes. He knew all the upper-class people in Hong Kong, but he had never seen this young man before. Who on earth could make the auction house pay so much attention to him? Qin Haodong did not look at Ichinzi anymore. He did not care about Master Ichinzi at all. What he cared about most now was the snake head that was going to be auctioned later. Soon, the auction began. A tall female auctioneer, who looked like a world-famous model, walked to the front stage. The female auctioneer was Caucasian and had a Western face. However, she was wearing a Chinese cheongsam, which made her curvaceous figure even more perfect. She had a sweet smile on her delicate face, which made people want to get close to her. The most eye-catching thing was that she was wearing a pair of white gloves. She was definitely a golden auctioneer in the auction house. Good evening, friends. Welcome to today's auction. I'm your auctioneer, Daniel. Although Daniel was a Westerner, he spoke Huaxia fluently. If you closed your eyes, you would not be able to imagine that he was a foreigner. Chapter 621. Daniel continued, as you all know, today is Sir Owen's special auction, and all the auction items are provided by Sir Owen. Friends who often attend auctions should know that Sir Owen is a golden signboard. As long as Sir Owen provides the auction items, they are absolutely authentic. You don't have to worry about the authenticity of the auction items. You only need to consider whether you like them and whether you can accept the final auction price. Today, Sir Owen has provided a total of 20 auction items. Now the auction officially begins. Daniel waved her hand and an etiquette lady walked to the front stage with a tray. Today's first auction item is an ancient Huaxia porcelain. It's a brush washer from the official kiln of the Southern Song dynasty. It is said that the great beauty Li Shishir once used it. She was also very proficient in the ancient culture of Huaxia. After making a detailed introduction of this brush washer, she announced, the starting price of this brush washer is 600,000 yuan, and each increase is 100,000 yuan. Now the bidding begins. Friends who are interested, hurry up. The porcelain of the Song dynasty was still very famous in the antique circle. Especially with the word official kiln, its value doubled 800,000 yuan. 1 million yuan. 5 million yuan. The price of this brush washer soared, and it was finally bought by a Hong Kong businessman at the price of 8 million yuan. The auction continued. This time, most of the auction items provided by Sir Owen were cultural relics unearthed in Huaxia. There were blue and white porcelain of the Yuan dynasty and calligraphy and paintings of famous masters. Any one of them was worth a lot. Daniel was indeed outstanding. Under her leadership, the atmosphere of the auction was very lively. All the auction items were successfully sold and none of them were left unsold. Qin Haodong sat there, but he did not raise the bidding card in his hand. He was not interested in these antiques at all. Ichenzi also sat quietly next to him and did not raise the bidding card even once. It seemed that he was waiting for something. Bao Yuming, who was sitting behind them, raised the bidding card several times in a row and successfully bought an ancient painting. From time to time, he glanced at Qin Haodong, waiting for him to raise the price and trample on him. He wanted to let Nailan Wushuang see that the toy boy she liked could only be trampled in front of him. At this moment, another item was brought onto the auction stage. Daniel opened the lid, and to his surprise, it was a very beautiful ancient sword. Dear friends, this is an ancient sword produced in China. According to our experts' appraisal, it should be from the Great Ming dynasty 400 to 500 years ago. I really admire the ancient Huaxia civilization for being able to make such a beautiful sword at that time. Daniel lifted up the ancient sword on the tray. The sword's scabbard was red and embedded with many different colored gems. The hilt was shaped like a butterfly. It looked like a sword used by women. Daniel continued his introduction. This sword is called the butterfly sword. Although it has been through hundreds of years, it is still extremely sharp. Everyone can take a look. This is definitely a rare ancient sword. As she spoke, she pulled out the sword from its scabbard. Under the illumination of the hall's lights, the sword flashed with a cold light. It did not look rusty at all. Everyone, look closely. This is one of the best ancient swords in China. It's definitely one of the best collectibles. Let's start the bidding. The starting price is 2 million, and each increment is 100,000. As Daniel spoke, he started the bidding for the butterfly sword. I offer 5 million. I offer 8 million. Obviously, many people were interested in this sword. They all raised the number plates in their hands and began to bid. Qin Haodong had already seen through the butterfly sword. This sword was indeed an ancient sword from hundreds of years ago. Although the quality was not very good, it was beautiful and very suitable for women. Knowing that Nailan Wushuang still did not have a suitable weapon, he turned his head and said, "How about it? Do you like it? If you like it, I'll bid for it and give it to you." Nailan Wushuang said, "I'll like anything you give me, and this sword looks really beautiful." Well, I'll bid for it first. If I find something suitable, I'll change it. At this time, the bidding had reached 3 million. Qin Haodong raised the number plate in his hand and shouted, I offer 4 million. For an ancient sword, the price of 3 million was already very high. He suddenly raised the price by 1 million. The hall suddenly quieted down, and no one raised the number plate to bid. At the same time, more and more people noticed the young man sitting in the front row. They did not know who he was. Daniel glanced at Qin Haodong in the front row. Just as men liked beautiful women also liked handsome men. She smiled brightly at Qin Haodong and said, this gentleman bids for million yuan. Is there anyone else who wants to participate in the auction? For million yuan once. Seeing that Qin Haodong finally raised the number plate, Bao Mingyu was delighted. He did not bid for this ancient sword before, but now Qin Haodong raised the number plate, so he wanted to step on Qin Haodong. Moreover, Qin Haodong had not participated in the bidding for anything for a long time. Now that he suddenly raised the number plate, it meant that Nalan Wushuang liked this sword very much. As long as he bought it, he would be able to please the beauty and maybe get a chance to further develop himself. The moment Daniel raised the small hammer in her hand, Bao Mingyu raised the number plate in his hand and said, I offer 5 million. Since he wanted to show off, of course, he could not be weak. He could not raise the price less than Qin Haodong, so he also raised the price by 1 million. At this time, Qin Haodong knew that Bao Mingyu was competing with him. He raised the number plate in his hand and shouted, 6 million, 7 million. Bao Mingyu followed closely, 10 million. Qin Haodong shouted a price that shocked everyone. Anyway, he did not care about money. The money would be spent by the Li family. Bao Mingyu hesitated for a moment. He did not expect that this toy boy would be so fierce and raise the price by 3 million at once. However, there was no turning back. Now everyone was watching him bidding with a toy boy. If he gave up now, he would lose face. So he gritted his teeth and continued to shout, 15 million. The price was far higher than the price of this ancient sword. Qin Haodong looked at Bao Mingyu and smiled. This guy was really arrogant. Since he was willing to show off, Qin Haodong would make him even more arrogant. He raised the number plate and shouted, 20 million. By now, he had already given up on the idea of buying this ancient sword. No matter who it was, spending 20 million to buy such an ancient sword that only looked good would still be a joke to others if he took it out. Although he had already given up, he did not mind raising the price of the sword to help the venue earn more commission and help Sir Owen make more money. Well, this time, Bao Mingyu hesitated and did not directly raise the number plate in his hand to bid. He had thought it would only cost him 10 million yuan at most to get the ancient sword and scare Qin Haodong away. Now the price was far higher than he had expected. It was indeed a big price to spend more than 20 million yuan to show off. At this time, Daniel spoke on the stage. As a white glove and a gold auctioneer of the auction house, he certainly knew the psychology of all kinds of people. After several rounds of bidding, he had already seen through Bao Mingyu's mind. 20 million yuan. This handsome Mr. Qin actually bid 20 million yuan. As the saying goes, 1,000 taels of gold can buy a beauty's smile. I guess Mr. Qin wants to buy this sword as a gift for the beautiful lady next to him. I really admire Mr. Qin's generosity to women. Daniel's words were not directed at Bao Mingyu, but she was very skillful. It was obvious that she was praising Qin Haodong, but Bao Mingyu's heart was hurt. He suddenly raised the number plate in his hand and shouted, I'll pay 30 million. Qin Haodong looked back at him playfully as if he was looking at an idiot. Then he put his number plate on the table. He had already seen that 30 million was this guy's bottom line. If he raised the price, he would be the biggest winner. Daniel smiled and said, Mr. Bao, 30 million. Is there anyone else? 30 million once, 30 million twice. After asking twice in a row, she knocked the hammer in her hand on the table in front of her. Congratulations, Mr. Bao. This beautiful ancient sword is yours. Although Bao Mingyu had won the bid, he didn't look happy at all. 30 million yuan was enough for him to invest in a small movie. It was too much for him to spend so much money just to show off. He had just shouted it out on impulse. Now that he had calmed down, his heart was bleeding. But he had already spent the money, so he could not say anything. He turned his head and looked at Nalan Wushuang. He had spent so much money, so the beauty should be impressed by him. However, Nalan Wushuang was not even interested in looking back at him. She was still looking at Qin Haodong with affection. Although she did not get the butterfly sword, she did not look dissatisfied at all. F***ck. He cursed fiercely in his heart, feeling extremely aggrieved. No matter how depressed he was, the auction went on. On the stage, Daniel began to introduce the next item. Ladies and gentlemen, the next item is the highlight of today's auction. I believe many people are here for it. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a national treasure of our country. Maybe some of you have already guessed that it is a precious cultural relic of our country, the snake head of the 12 zodiac animals. After Daniel's tempting words, there was a commotion under the stage. Indeed, many people came to the auction for the bronze head of the 12 zodiac animals. Chapter 622. Daniel said, I don't think I need to tell you more about the bronze head. This is a treasure from the old summer palace of Huaxia. Huaxia was weak back then, so the national treasure was lost. Today, Huaxia is strong and rich people are gathering. If anyone here is willing and has the ability, I sincerely hope that someone can bring this snake head back to Huaxia. Although I'm not from Huaxia, I know that this is a treasure that belongs to Huaxia. This woman was indeed a talent. She knew what to say to mobilize everyone's enthusiasm to the greatest extent. After she finished speaking, many rich Chinese businessmen present were ready to take action. Obviously, they all wanted to buy the snake head and send it back to Huaxia. Seeing that everyone was excited, Daniel said directly, let's start the auction of the snake head. This is the most valuable treasure in our auction today. The starting price is 5 million yuan and the price will increase by 1 million yuan each time. Friends who are interested can start now. Normally, the price of the snake head would definitely be much higher than 5 million yuan, but the starting price of the auction items was lower than the value of the item. The price would only rise after the starting price. Some people had even predicted that the snake head would be sold for at least 30 million yuan this time, or even more than 50 million yuan. As soon as Daniel's voice fell, someone shouted, I'll pay 5 million yuan. The first person to make a bid was Enchanting, who was sitting in the front row. He had not made a bid yet and it was obvious that he was waiting for the snake head. To everyone's surprise, after the auction, Enchanting stood up from his seat, turned around and said to everyone behind him, everyone, this snake head is something that my master likes. The old man looked very arrogant. After saying that, he did not even look at the crowd and sat back directly. Obviously, he was very sure that no one in Hong Kong dared to compete with Mei Zhanlong. All the people present were speechless. Many people who had been waiting to bid were dumbfounded. Some people had even raised their number plates halfway, but after hearing Enchanting's words, they all stopped. In Hong Kong, no one dared to offend Mei Zhanlong and his disciple. Once they offended the most powerful man in Hong Kong, they would not be able to live in peace in the future as long as they left a talisman in their house. Losing all their money would be a light punishment, and their family might even be ruined. Qin Haodong's eyes widened abruptly. What was the difference between using power to frighten others into bidding and robbing things? Generally speaking, this kind of behavior was absolutely prohibited in the auction venue. If someone else did this, they would probably be beaten up by the auction organizers immediately. But it was Enchanting who spoke today, and he had just said that this was what Mei Zhanlong wanted. Whether it was the Li family who was in charge of the auction or Sir Owen who took out the auction item, no one wanted to offend Master Mei Zhanlong for such an item. Daniel did not speak, nor did Tian Yi. Even the representative sent by Sir Owen did not speak. Ichinzi sneered complacently. The result was within his expectation. No one dared to compete with them for what they wanted. The others also thought so. Without Ichinzi's participation, the snakehead would definitely be sold at a sky-high price. But now it was different. No one dared to offend Ichinzi for this snakehead. Even Mei Zhanlong, who was behind him. Daniel secretly shook her head. As the auctioneer, of course, she didn't want to see this result. The higher the price, the more commission she would get. If it was sold at a low price, she wouldn't get a single cent of commission. But she also knew the person in front of her. Even these rich people were afraid of him. As an auctioneer, she definitely could not afford to offend him. Seeing that there was no sound around, she picked up the auction hammer in her hand and shouted, "This snakehead has been chosen by Master Ichinzi. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? If not, 5 million once, 5 million twice." Just when she raised the auction hammer in her hand and was about to make the final decision, she suddenly heard someone shouting, "I bid 6 million. Daniel was startled. Her right hand trembled and she almost knocked the hammer on the table. She quickly put away the hammer and looked in the direction of the voice. Not only her, but all the people present also looked at the person who made the bid. A number plate was raised high in the front row. It was the young man who had just bid with Bao Mingyu for the butterfly sword. Seeing that Daniel was stunned and did not respond, Qin Haodong smiled at her and said again, "Beautiful Miss Daniel, I bid 6 million. Daniel came to her senses and looked at Qin Haodong with a flash of worry in her eyes. She quickly said professionally, "Mr. Qin bid 6 million yuan. Is there anyone else who wants to bid?" She also knew what this bid represented, so she did not make too much exaggeration. No one could predict what Ichinzi would do next. Now everyone's eyes were focused on Ichinzi, because Qin Haodong's bid was not only a matter of money, but also a direct challenge to Ichinzi's authority and the authority of Mei Zhanlong, the #1 practitioner in Hong Kong. Who the hell is this guy? How dare he bid with Master Ichinzi? Does he want to die? I don't know. Since he can sit in the supreme VIP seat, he must have some background. But no matter how powerful his background is, he can't be compared with Master Ichinzi. It's really a case of a mouse playing with a cat. He wants money more than his life. He dares to rob others. Does he think that Master Ichinzi is as rich as Bao Yuming? He's doomed. I guess he doesn't know who Master Ichinzi is. If he knew, he would not dare to compete with Bao Yuming. Even so, he is doomed. The people present were all talking about it. Everyone looked at him with pity, excitement, and gloating eyes. Bao Yuming was the happiest one. He had been thinking about how to teach this arrogant guy a lesson, but now it seemed that he did not need to do it. This guy from Huaxia would probably die after offending Master Ichinzi. A flash of fear flashed across Tian Ye's face and he hurried over to Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong seemed to know what he was going to do, so he waved his hand and motioned him not to say anything. This, Qin Haodong was a distinguished guest of the Li family and Master Ichinzi was on the other side. Tian Yi could not afford to offend either of them, so he could only stand aside silently and resign himself to fate. Ichinzi's face quickly darkened. He did not expect that this young man in his 20s would dare to challenge his prestige. He looked at Qin Haodong coldly and his eyes were full of killing intent. Qin Haodong still had a faint smile on his face, as if Ichinzi was not looking at him. "Boy, do you know who I am? I'm Ichinzi." Ichinzi finally revealed his identity. In his opinion, the reason why the young man in front of him dared to be so arrogant was that he did not know his identity. But something unexpected happened again. Qin Haodong just smiled faintly and said, "I'm bidding for this snakehead sculpture. Who you are has nothing to do with me. Don't tell me you want me to give up on bidding just because of your ugly name?" Good, very good. Ichinzi finally understood that Qin Haodong did not take him seriously at all. He said coldly, "I hope you can take this snakehead sculpture back." At this moment, he had made up his mind. He wanted this snakehead sculpture and this young man's life. However, this was an auction house after all, so it was not appropriate for him to kill Qin Haodong in public. He had to wait until the auction was over. Qin Haodong smiled and did not take Ichenzi's threat seriously at all. He turned his head and said to the stage, "Miss Daniel, shall we continue the auction?" Daniel came to her senses and continued, "Mr. Qin has already bid 6 million yuan. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? If not, 6 million once, 6 million twice." Everyone present knew that although Qin Haodong had bid for this snakehead sculpture, it was still Master Ichenzi's possession. In this case, no one would be stupid enough to bid for it. Although the snakehead sculpture was precious, it was not as valuable as one's life. In this case, Daniel called out several times, but no one raised their bid. Finally, she put down the hammer and the snakehead sculpture was sold to Qin Haodong at the price of 6 million yuan. Qin Haodong was quite surprised by this result. He did not expect that this old man would stand up and rob it, but in the end, he got the bargain. He had just used his mobile phone to check the auction of the animal heads. Recently, a head sculpture was sold for more than 20 million yuan, but that was almost 10 years ago. In recent years, the price of antiques in Huaxia had been soaring, not to mention a national treasure like the bronze head sculpture of the 12 zodiac animals. It wouldn't be surprising if it could be sold for 60 million yuan, let alone 6 million yuan. However, because of Ichenzi's interference, he bought such a valuable thing at such a low price. It was a pleasant surprise. The auction continued. When the last item was brought to the stage, everyone was surprised. It turned out to be a monk's staff. This staff was about 1.5 meters high and the metal color was very dark. It was hard to tell what material it was made of. There were 12 strings of gold rings hanging on its head. When it moved, it made a pleasant sound as if it could shake people's souls. After seeing this staff, Qin Haodong almost jumped up from his seat. The Buddha Qi on this staff was so strong that it had reached the level of a divine weapon. He had never dreamed that there would be such a rare Buddhist treasure in today's auction in addition to the snakehead sculpture, which was a national treasure. From the moment he saw this staff, he had made up his mind to get this treasure. Chapter 623. Daniel held the Buddha's staff in his hand, and as he shook it, the 12 golden rings produced a pleasant sound. My friends, I don't need to tell you that this is a Buddhist staff. It has a long history and was obtained by Sir Owen by chance. If any of you is destined to be a Buddhist monk, you can take it back with you. It will definitely bless your family and make your career prosperous. She said a lot, but if you looked closely, you would find nothing substantial. It was not that she didn't want to say it, but she really didn't know the origin of the staff. This staff was indeed something that Sir Owen had obtained by chance. He had asked many experts in this field to identify it, but they could not find any useful information about its history and age. Sir Owen was a devout Christian, so he had no interest in collecting Buddhist artifacts. Therefore, he sold it at the auction. Because of the uncertainty of the staff, the auction house put it behind the beast head, hoping that it could be sold at a good price because of the snake head. However, the auction house didn't expect that the snake head, which they had high hopes for, was only sold for 6 million yuan. Daniel continued, "Now the bidding for this staff starts. The starting price is 500,000 yuan, and each increment must be no less than 100,000 yuan. My friends who are destined to be a Buddhist can start bidding now." Although Qin Haodong had already chosen this staff, he had 500 years of experience. The more he wanted something, the more he had to be calm and the less he could show his desire. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to bid. He wanted to see other people's reactions. It would be best if no one was interested in it. But as soon as Daniel finished speaking, Bao Mingyu raised the number plate in his hand and said, "I'll pay 800,000 yuan." Qin Haodong was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that this playboy would be interested in the staff. The star was also very surprised and asked, "Master, it's obviously used by monks. Why do you want to buy it?" Bao Mingyu said, "It's my grandfather's 80th birthday in a few days. He believes in Buddhism all his life, and his favorite things are Buddhist objects. I think this is a good thing. It's the best gift for him." Qin Haodong heard his words clearly. No matter what the other party's purpose was, he had to get his hands on this Buddhist staff. Except for the two of them, no one else had any interest in the staff. The people who came to the auction were experts in antiques. Naturally, they could see that the staff had no age or history, so there was not much room for it to rise in value. Therefore, after the auction started, only a few people made a few bids, and then they all backed out. The market gradually quieted down. Daniel said, "Mr. Bao has offered 2 million yuan. Is there anyone else interested? You only have one chance. There won't be another if you miss it." Qin Haodong saw that it was almost time. He raised the number plate in his hand and shouted, "I'll pay 5 million. After Bao Mingyu made his offer, there was an uproar in the hall. In everyone's eyes, Bao Mingyu had raised the price by 3 million yuan for an unknown object. Many people shook their heads. This young man had offended Ichenzi and no one knew whether he would survive. Now he was here to argue with Bao Mingyu. They really didn't know what he was thinking. Bao Mingyu was no exception. In his opinion, there was no need for Qin Haodong to buy this Buddhist staff at all. The reason why Qin Haodong raised the price was to humiliate him. He was furious. He had already lost once. If he were to lose again, he would be too ashamed to stay in this industry. "I'll pay 10 million. Bao Mingyu raised the price by 5 million at once. But Qin Haodong didn't care about that at all. He was determined to get this Buddhist staff, so he shouted, 20 million. Daniel's lips curled into a smile. She was a little disappointed by the snake head just now, but it was just like the old saying in Huaxia, "What you lose on the swings, you gain on the mulberry." She never thought that this Buddhist staff would be sold for such a high price. Although Qin Haodong raised the price by 10 million, Bao Mingyu didn't flinch. He shouted, 30 million, 40 million. Bao Mingyu gritted his teeth and said, 50 million. This price was already very high for him. If it wasn't a gift for his grandpa, he wouldn't be able to explain it to his family. Qin Haodong looked at him with a smile and said lightly, 80 million. His voice was not loud, but it shocked the whole auction house. He raised the price by 30 million at once. Who on earth was this prodigal son who spent so much money on a monk's crutch? Did his family's money come from nowhere? Bao Mingyu was ashamed and angry. If he continued to raise the price, it would be almost 100 million yuan. Even if he could afford it, he didn't dare to raise the price easily. Who knew if Qin Haodong was trying to cheat him again? Now he was in a dilemma. If he gave up now, he would be disgraced. If he continued to raise the price, he really couldn't afford it. Feeling the sarcasm in the eyes of the people around him, his face became redder and redder. He was extremely embarrassed and he held the number plate tightly with his right hand. There were several times when he had the urge to jump up and down, but he was suppressed by reason. Suddenly, he thought of something and shouted to Daniel on the stage, "Auctioneer, I want to verify the price. I think this guy has no money at all. He's just raising the price." Qin Haodong didn't even have an invitation to the auction house before. It was already good enough for such a person to spend 6 million to buy the snakehead sculpture. How could he have enough money to compete with him, let alone take out 80 million yuan at once? According to the rules of the auction house, he could ask to verify Qin Haodong's assets. As long as Qin Haodong had no money, not only would he win, but Qin Haodong would also be disgraced. The more Bao Mingyu thought about it, the more proud he was. He felt that he was really smart. At this time, Tianyi walked to him and said, "Mr. Bao, Mr. Qin's assets don't need to be verified." Bao Mingyu was immediately angry and shouted, "Why? According to the rules of your auction house, you can verify Qin Haodong's assets." In his opinion, Qin Haodong was in cahoots with Tianyi. He must have sneaked into the auction house through Tianyi's connections. Tian Yi said, there are indeed relevant rules in the auction house, but Mr. Qin is a distinguished guest of our Li family. The money he needs to participate in the auction will be borne by us, and there is no upper limit. After Tian Ye's words, the whole auction house was in an uproar. What did it mean that there was no upper limit for capital consumption? Didn't it mean that he could buy whatever he wanted and the Li family would pay for it? No one had expected that this young man would be treated so well. Who was he? How could he be valued by the Li family? Who the hell is this Qin brat? He has no upper limit for capital consumption. Isn't it amazing? I guess he must be the illegitimate son of a big shot in Huaxia. Otherwise, the Li family would never try to please him. Oh my god, he is so powerful. I want to marry him. I want to have children with him. Some people sneered at him. No matter how rich he was, what could he do? If he offended Master Ichenzi, he would definitely lose his life. Bao Mingyu was already dumbfounded at this time. Qin Haodong had unlimited capital consumption in the auction house, but he was still fighting with Qin Haodong and trying to trample on Qin Haodong with money. Now he felt more and more like an idiot. It was like playing a game. Qin Haodong had unlimited firepower and life, but Bao Mingyu insisted on fighting with him. How could he win? After explaining the situation, Tian Yi left and Daniel said on the stage, Mr. Qin bids 80 million yuan. Is there anyone else who wants to make a bid? The auction house was silent and no one made a sound. No one would compete with Qin Haodong for an auction item if they had too much money to spend. Besides, they didn't know what the item was used for. After calling several times, no one responded. Daniel knocked the auction hammer in his hand and the monk's staff was now Qin Haodong's. She was very happy. No matter who paid for Qin Haodong's consumption, she would get a commission. 80 million yuan was already the largest sum of money they had made at the auction tonight, which was enough to make up for the loss of the snake head. The last item was sold and today's auction was completely over. The guests who participated in the auction began to leave the auction house. Ichenzi stood up, glanced at Qin Haodong with killing intent, and then walked out. In his opinion, this young man was already a dead man, but it was not convenient for him to kill him in the auction house. Qin Haodong had already received the 2 collections. He was holding the box with the snake head in his hand and the monk's staff was in Nalan Wushuang's hands. He was now sure that this monk's staff was a divine weapon, but it looked a little strange in the hands of a beautiful woman like Nalan Wushuang. After the auction, he was not in a hurry to leave. He said to Tian Yi, Manager Tian, is it convenient for you? I have something to tell you. Tian Yi sighed and said, Mr. Qin, please come to my office and sit for a while. In his opinion, Qin Haodong must have asked him for help because of Ichenzi. Li Meiyu had told him that the young man in front of him was a super distinguished guest of the Li family and he must meet all his requirements. There was no other way but to send all the security forces of the auction house to protect Qin Haodong's safety. But there was little hope that they could stop Master Ichenzi. As a native of Hong Kong, Master Mei Zhanlong and Ichenzi were like immortals in their hearts. How could ordinary people compete with immortals? In his opinion, it was very unwise for Qin Haodong to offend Ichenzi for a snake head. Qin Haodong followed Tian Yi to his office. After sitting down, he asked, Manager Tian, do you know Sir Owen? You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.